So we just start talking and then pretend that we're in the middle of a conversation, and then like a minute or two in, you go like, "Hi."
I don't do that for every podcast episode. There's sometimes like pre-discussion that I choose to include. That's like half the time, maybe. So you're thinking animation, reboot culture, mythology's place in the human mind, memory. Anything else that you were?
I mean, that's a pretty full list right
It
there.
is, yeah. I just wasn't sure if you changed your mind or thought of any other things that you were interested in.
I wanted to talk about the anatomy of goldfish. I don't know.
That's
Like
something
what?
I
I don't know.
Let's do it.
There's nothing else I could really talk about. I'm a massive nerd. That's all there is to my life.
Oh yeah. Also, one important thing: do you want to go by your full name or do you want to go by first name only?
Let's get to that.
Welcome to the Regular People Podcast. I'm Wade Allen, and today I'm joined by
I'm actually going by Shilo now,
Shilo. Okay.
which my former coworkers know me by a different name, but guess what? I always hated that name. Yeah.
I always hated the birth name.
Same pronouns and everything. It's
Oh,
like,
okay.
Shiloh was like a male name until Brad and Angelino screwed it up, but whatever.
Did they have a
Yeah,
female
apparently
named
when I
Shiloh?
was like researching it, yeah.
Oh, okay. Is it just something that you're telling people to call you by, or is it like a legal name change?
No, I'm gonna try to stick with it for a year or two.
See
maybe.
how it goes?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Oh.
Are you planning on like changing
That's
on...
like pretty recent, like within the last month.
Oh, okay. Planning on changing that on social media or anything like that?
I quit Facebook already.
Okay, that's good for your mental health.
And I'm not really out to my family yet, so like, I don't know if I'm gonna be doing that on Facebook if I ever reactivate. But I have on Twitter and Instagram, so
Oh, okay.
and YouTube as of last night.
Okay. Out meaning what? Just different name?
As a different
Oh, okay. Yeah, I wonder if that's something that parents really dislike.
Yeah.
It's like they chose to name you, and then you're like, no, I don't like that name.
Yeah.
So it might be upsetting to parents.
I don't know. Like, I told my sister, and she's like kind of weirded out by it, but respects it. But like, I know that my dad especially would never go along with it.
Oh, okay.
Oh well, we'll
Yeah.
deal with that in time.
Yeah. Do you see your parents often?
So, against my will, I am living in the downstairs apartment of my dad's
Against
duplex.
your will.
Yeah, because I was trying to move to River West this past summer, and this landlord ghosted me
Oh,
like a
okay.
day before I was supposed to move. So I had to figure something out last minute, and I'm like, "Hey, Dad, can you ask your landlord if the bottom apartment is, blah blah blah, and I can't afford the rent, so can we like knock 100 off that?" And he's like, "Sure."
So it's not the same. It's like a different apartment.
Yeah, it's all the pros. No, it's it's none of the pros and all of the cons of living with parents and living on your own. Like, I have to pay my own rent, I have to clean my own stuff, but then like I also, can't really have people over, shit like that.
Well, if it's a different apartment, like not building, but like a apartment unit, why couldn't you have people over to that? Is your dad just gonna barge in at random times?
That was an issue the first couple weeks. I just left my door unlocked because what? My dad's not gonna rob me. Well, he comes in while I'm sleeping and puts ice cream in my freezer, and I'm like, "Dad, I'm not eating dairy. Can you not do that?"
He puts ice cream
Now,
in
what
your
am I
freezer.
supposed to do with this gallon of ice cream?
I mean, you just sneak back in his apartment unit and put it in his
Well,
freezer.
no, because it doesn't go the other way.
Oh, he
can
keeps his door
sneak
locked?
into my apartment, but I can't do it to him.
You gotta lock your doors.
Yeah. I learned that the first week.
So you've just been stockpiling like week by week more and more ice cream? in your...
No, luckily that was only once.
Oh, okay. So a few things that we're going to talk about today. So far, we've got a list. We got animation, we got reboot culture, we got mythology's place in the human mind, memory, and any other topics that we might run into. So
What have I been doing the last 5 years?
Actually, yeah. I wasn't going to go with that because I just didn't think of it for some reason, but you brought it up. So
Well,
yeah, what's your life been like the last 5 years? How have you changed? What have you been up to broadly?
God. Okay, so 5 years ago, 2016, I was in the middle of college. So I started out a film major in 2014, and then my sophomore year, we had a group project, and I didn't really want to work with a group, so instead I like threw together pieces of concept art I had for like this sci-fi series that I was working on all through high school. So yeah, I worked on a project because an animation project because I didn't want to work with anybody else. So, and then I was like, hey, I'm actually good at this, and I kept working on animation.
So the original plan was film, and then
Yeah.
got diverted into animation because you found that you liked that
Yeah.
better.
And I mean, in middle school, I had been doing stop motions with Legos.
Oh yeah,
Towards the end of college, I was in this puppetry class.
puppetry class. That
Yeah.
sounds really interesting.
Yeah. And
Didn't you know that was like a thing? At least that
it's
you know,
a thing.
typical colleges. Like,
Well, yeah.
wait, what college did you go to?
UWM.
Okay, yeah, I would expect a puppetry class at like an art school, but not necessarily at UWM.
Yeah. But we actually partnered with MATC's film department to do a little thing. It's called Creature Creek. You might be able to find it on YouTube.
Creature Creek.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's
link
it
to it if
aired
I find
on PBS.
Really?
Yeah, it was like a student project.
Yeah.
But we were hoping that they would pick it up for a full series, but they didn't. So, oh well.
So like a pilot aired or something like that.
It was
Like a
one
short?
MATC students like independent thing.
Did you get your name in the credits?
Yeah,
Nice.
my old name.
Right. Yeah. So then UWM, you switched from film to animation. What next?
One day at work, I had the idea of, why don't, robots look like humans, but why don't they ever have hair? So then I was thinking, wait, why would a robot have hair? And, I came up with the idea that, oh, it's her memories that are growing out of these hair strands. And, as she ages, the strands get longer. And then we'll probably get to it. But
Yeah,
like
I'm
I
into it
had
so
some
far.
memory issues in the past. And so it's kind of my way of coming to term. I'm sorry, I cracked my knuckles right into the microphone. So it's kind of my way of coming to terms with some of that.
Did you make this into a...
Yeah, I'm
Film?
still working on it.
Oh, okay.
I did one episode. I did like half an episode. Like the second semester of my junior year, I was intending to do my senior film as this like 20-minute like first fifth of this story that I have planned out, and my professor was like, this is too much lore, you're starting out really boring, you need to get something that's more manageable. And I'm like, okay, here's episode 3. So I rushed episode 3. So on my YouTube channel I have like a half complete episode 1 rough draft, and then episode 3, and now I'm going back and remaking episode 1 to my current standards.
Oh, okay. How long is episode 3? Episode 3, is it 20 minutes?
It's like 8 minutes.
Oh, okay.
And a lot of that is a 3D animation. I commissioned someone like on that first animation project like years and years ago, because like I sort of readapted some elements of the old story to the new one, but it's like also totally different. Whatever.
So are you mostly into 3D or 2D animation?
2D animation.
Okay. And then you had someone do 3D animation
Yeah.
for that video. Okay. So what kind of things do you have to use for 2D animation? Like what programs?
Well, I learned Adobe Animate, which was formerly Flash. But it's kind of expensive, and I have my issues with Adobe charging like $20 a month. Like, if I pay for something, I want to own it.
Yeah.
But
Rather than a subscription.
there's like Toon Boom. There's Open Tunes, which was used on Futurama and some Studio Ghibli films.
Okay.
I tried learning that one. I don't know. I don't get it.
That's how I feel about some software that they have like really bad tutorials. Like I recently downloaded Unity, and just because I want to make like a really simple game, and then the tutorials like just suck. They don't really teach you how to use the software at all. So you got to just kind of do it all on your own, looking up stuff on forums and seeing how to even get started with making anything. That's what I don't understand though. If you've got like Adobe Animate, I feel like a better business model, at least for the consumer end, would be have it free, and then anything that you release with that, they have like partial ownership of, or they make money off of. I guess maybe it doesn't work the same with a video you're making as with a video game, because a video game you're intending to sell it. A video, not necessarily. You're just releasing it for people to look at rather than sell.
True.
So maybe that business model works better for video game creating than for animation.
Is that how Unity works?
Unity's free, and then they get like 5% of your total sales when you make a finished game. There are you can get like Unity different packages that you pay for to get more like textures and like pre-built game objects and stuff like that. So you can pay for Unity, but it's you don't have to. And like the free version isn't some like trial version where you only get access to half of the features. You get access to all the features. It's just you have to like literally make everything from scratch on your game. You can buy additional stuff to do the heavy lifting for you if you don't want to have to create every wall texture in your game and every sprite. You can buy sprite packs, but at a basic level, yeah, Unity's free.
So you didn't get very far on that?
It takes like, you just sit there at the computer for like 4 hours just like trying to create a single object, giving it like physics properties, and then it's like, wow. Like if you had to do it this way to create an entire game, it would. I understand why it takes like the guy who made Stardew Valley. It took him 9 years to make that
really?
game. Yeah, it's just one guy. He made that game, and yeah, he spent I think nine years in his free time. He made all the music and all the models and all the mechanics. He did everything.
But like things like that, and like Undertale and Doki Doki Literature Club, where like the creator is coming at it from a place of passion, and like it's better than any, Call of Duty number 87 or Doom 6 or Tomb Raider 47.
Yeah, you can tell when you're playing it that it wasn't just based off of like, how are we going to make the most money off of this? It was based off of like, I care about this, and even if I don't make money off of it, I still want to do it. Yeah, indie games, I think definitely over the past 5 years, there's been like a indie game renaissance or something like that, where there's so many of them. They're getting so successful, and it's because people pour their life blood into them.
Well, but like so many of them are crap,
Yeah. It's like there's a million indie games, and 1% of them are amazing.
Yeah, and like,
but maybe that's part of the reason indie games are so, as a genre, so great, because there's just so many of them. It's so like they're so quick to make compared to other games, because if you have a like big video game company of 400 people making a game, if they're all making their own indie games, then you'd have 400 games versus one game, and maybe 399 of those games suck, but then one's really good, or 5 of them are really good, and you don't have to pay as much money for them as a consumer.
Well, I mean, if you bought 400 of them, it'd be more expensive, but
yeah, you gotta wait until like the games rise to the top, and you see which one of the newest batch of indie games is best, and then buy that one.
Oh yeah,
rather than just buying them as they come out every single time. You can tell too, I feel like, based off of the just like the art or the name, or like what.
Well, yeah, and like how many
a few like seconds of gameplay, like video, just like, does this game suck?
Like, remember all the Flappy Bird clones that they had at the time?
I was obsessed with Flappy Bird when it came out. I was proud of myself because I could get to like 100 pipes.
Oh my god. I think I made it to 12, but it never hooked me. It was just too much work for no reward, Yeah.
I didn't even have an actual like phone then that could play games. I had a flip phone. So when I was at work at Domino's Pizza in high school,
oh god,
when it was like nothing was going on, I would use my coworker, my friend's phone, play Flappy Bird on his thing. That was the only time I played it, but it was really fun.
But I think like, how hard should I be trying to like bring this back to topics?
It doesn't matter. We can go on tangents, or it can all be related. I go on tangents all the time.
Because it's like, I love Star Wars. Okay, like people look at me and they're like, "Oh, you must be a big Star Wars nerd," and I'm like, I guess. I like
are you wearing
it.
Star Wars t-shirts? Are they just assuming this about you?
Well, no. I mean, people just assume that, I look like a nerd, and I am, but like, I think that's part of like what's missing from the new Star Wars films. And I like all of them. You know, even the worst Star Wars movie to me is like better than pretty much anything.
Oh, really? I'm gonna have to disagree with you on that
okay,
one. We can
all
talk
right.
about it.
I mean, I have my issues, like especially with Episode 9. Like
Yeah.
that was just.
I would say that's one of the worst movies I've seen.
Oh my god. Okay, but you haven't been through film school. I mean, they make you watch 11 minutes of a fog moving past a tree, or
Okay,
a wheel,
fair enough.
or a webcam strapped to the wheel of a car. Just utter dog shit. But
Anyway, you like Star Wars.
but like, so part of, I think what's missing from the new films, and you know, I especially Rogue One and Episode 8 I really like. I can back up why I like Episode 8.
Wait, which one's 8?
Last Jedi.
Well, yeah, I'm trying to think what like the plot
they
is of that
escape from the jungle planet where they had the rebel base. They're in space most of the time. Rey's training with Luke.
one. Oh, that's the one with Luke. Okay, yeah. I actually like that one. That's my favorite of the new trilogy.
Yeah,
A lot of people disagree with us there.
because like Episode 7 is just a remake of A New Hope.
It is.
And then
It's a remake
Episode 9
2.0.
is a remake of everything that came
Episode
before.
9 is a dumpster fire.
And it's like, oh, we need to find this ancient dagger that
Oh,
points
God.
to a specific
Oh,
room on the
God.
Death Star. If you stand at it, if
Yeah.
you stand at this angle and look at it.
That whole movie I felt like was written by somebody who writes video games. Like they just are like, we need some like new objective that like the player can do a mission.
Right.
It's like this is just a wild goose chase of like video game mission objectives that make no sense and suck as like when you put it into a movie format. Like it might make a playable video game, just doing random things one after another. But yeah, it was horrible.
But yeah, it's like, oh, Kylo Ren has to put together the pieces of his helmet, and we have to find these hyperspace coordinates, and we have to find the hyperspace coordinate cube, and we have to find the other hyperspace coordinate cube. And here's Anakin's lightsaber, and here's this dagger, and it's like there's like 8 MacGuffins going on at once.
MacGuffins, that's it. You gotta collect these unnecessary objects.
And
because we
need to
didn't
go
wanna
to
think
the
of a
Death
plot.
Star. We need to go to Endor. We need to go to the desert planet that's not Tatooine. We need to go to the jungle planet that's not Yavin.
We need to have all of the characters who have ever appeared in Star Wars in this movie.
I like that they brought back Lando and Wedge.
I thought you were going to say Darth Sidious, and I was going to slap you.
No. Okay, because that like
that thing,
I get that to some people Star Wars is like just popcorn movie, and like I can appreciate that, you know, wizards whacking each other with glow sticks. That's nice. It's fun. But like if you're going to go back to this movie from 1983 and like invalidate the main character's sacrifice to save his son. You know, he dies to take out Palpatine, but oh, look, Palpatine's alive, and they don't even explain how in the movie.
That was the worst. Well, not the worst. It was one of the many awful things in that movie. Palpatine comes back. There's no explanation for how or like why or what the fuck. The explanation is in the trailer for the movie. Like the trailer says Palpatine is back, and then the movie starts, and you're like, wait, it just starts with Palpatine is back. Like, what?
Well, no, because they had that in Fortnite. No, literally, there was a prequel to Episode 9 where Palpatine comes back, and they did it in Fortnite. So if you weren't playing Fortnite on that one day, you don't get this part of this blockbuster movie.
Was there like a story in it?
I don't
was it
know.
Just
I don't
the fact
give a
that Palpatine
fuck.
is back?
I don't know.
Yeah, that is one thing that really annoys me is like extra media like storytelling where they do it all scattered throughout different mediums. One franchise that does that a lot is World of Warcraft. Mm-hmm. You know, it's a video game. It's a massively multiplayer MMO RPG, but they also tell their story through books and like little short films. And the short films are really well done, and the books are good books. But it's like most players aren't going to be reading these books and seeing these things. So when a story event happens in game, that's a follow up to something that happened in a book. Most people are like, I don't know how we got here because I didn't read these 9 books that came out this year.
Yeah, and like Dragon Age and Mass Effect have like books and comics on the side, but like they don't really affect the games.
Oh, okay.
Halo, recently, the most recent trilogy, is doing that more and more, where they have like this trilogy of books about this villain in Halo 4. another trilogy of books about another villain in Halo 4. And, this is how John met up with his childhood friends, and now Master Chief met up with his childhood friends, and blah, blah, blah. This is what the Arbiter was. It's like, just put the story in the games.
Yeah.
One franchise that did it well, I think, is actually Bionicle. Were you into Bionicles as a kid?
I never knew any of the story of Bionicles, but I owned Bionicles and I liked playing with them.
Okay, so they basically started with comics that came in the Lego magazine that were free. And they told like a basic story. But then there were books starting in like the third year. And then, of course, there were movies. And movies? Yeah, did you not know there were Bionicle movies?
Like TV movies?
No, they were direct to DVD.
Okay.
The first 3 are pretty good because like the animation company actually tried to like make them more than just a toy commercial, but then the 4th one that they did a couple years later just went full-blown toy commercial. But yeah, the first 3 are good. They're on YouTube. Lego doesn't care about copyright for them anymore. And then they actually did a Netflix series when they rebooted it a couple years ago. But my point is, with the Bionicle story, like year by year, they wanted the story to like build on itself like Legos. And so they have like comics and books and movies year by year, comics, books, movies, comic book, music, movies. God, maybe I'm not the best person to do a podcast.
That's right.
I actually did a Bionicle podcast when I was a teenager.
A Bionicle podcast?
Yeah. And it was after it ended. And there were already 2 Bionicle podcasts that were like established. So we were like...
It was like fan fiction kind of thing?
No, it was like us actually talking about Bionicle.
Oh,
okay, it was so stupid.
It was a Bionicle analysis kind of podcast? Or
sort of, yeah.
Okay. So you're like a Bionicle pro then?
Well, it's left over in my brain.
Yeah.
Despite everything.
Despite all your attempts to erase it? Is that what that means?
Yes, actually. Well, not intentionally erase it, but
okay.
Like I said, I've had some issues with memory. Yeah, but one time I was editing this podcast and Audacity crashed right after I had cut audio, like cut paste.
Yeah.
So we lost an entire episode.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, I feel that. I started like recording some podcasts before I did this one like 2 or 3 years ago with my friend Miguel, and we recorded like 3 or 4 episodes, and I wanted to have like a solid amount of episodes already finished before I started releasing any. And then I sent the files to him, and then he's like, wait, I can't open these, like nothing's in them. And then I was like, what? So I looked on my computer, and all of a sudden my files had nothing in them. So I was like, oh, great. We just like spent hours talking and like doing this podcast, and I spent hours editing it, and it's just all gone.
And then you try to re-record it, and it's just not natural.
Yeah, you can't re-record like the same conversation you already had. It doesn't work. Okay,
so do you know Rooster Teeth?
That's not something I've ever heard before.
Rooster Teeth.
Rooster Teeth. Tell me what Rooster Teeth is.
Have you heard of Red vs. Blue or Ruby?
Yeah.
Okay, they're the company that makes Red vs. Blue and Ruby. I used to be a huge fan. Now I'm not. I just don't have time to watch their stuff, and they've been plagued with a ton of controversies the last 2 years. Anyway, so they have this podcast that goes back like 10 years, and there are fans on YouTube that like show like these people saying the same story like 5 years apart, and like sometimes they tell it exactly the same, sometimes things get exaggerated little by little. It's just kind of fascinating.
Like how we tell stories?
Yeah.
Yeah, I have gone through this swinging back and forth in my mind over the past several years of like if I'm a person who likes telling stories to people, because it can be enjoyable if like you're telling a story that somebody hasn't heard before, and like they think it's funny or whatnot, they think it's like a cool thing that you did, but at the same time I feel this sort of like falseness about it. All right, so this is the backstory of this first coming into my head. I had gone to France for 2 months. And then when I came back, my French teacher from high school from years prior said that like, oh, I should come teach her a French class for a day and tell them about my time there. So then I had 2 French classes that I was teaching. Like the first one, I went through the hour and I was telling them about my time in France and like the culture there and everything. And I was making jokes and I was getting laughs, and it was like a good storytelling experience. Then the second class period, I was like, okay, I'm going to do the same thing. And then I was telling these same jokes that I made like 2 hours before. And I was like feeling this like sense of like I didn't come up with it on the spot right then. So I was reusing it. So it felt like not genuine. And I feel like because of that, I didn't get the same amount of laughs. It didn't get the same reception because I could tell in my own delivery of it that I was doubting myself because I didn't like it as much the second time. It wasn't spontaneous. So then I was like, oh, like I don't think I could be a stand-up comedian because you would have to just retell the same jokes over and over and over for like a whole year when you're on tour or whatever. Or like maybe even a teacher, because that's what I was doing that day. I was teaching, and you have to like through your 3 or 4 class periods in that day, you have to do the same lesson over and over. And then it made me think about storytelling in general. And I don't know if I like telling the same stories over and over. And I realize I am telling this story right now that I've told before, and it feels weird. Because that's one thing. Like you can tell it the same way. Like we were talking about re-recording a podcast episode that you've already done. Like you don't have that same spirit in it that you did when you first did it. It's like acting now. It's not the same energy that you had the first time. Or you like if you're telling a story, you add on, you exaggerate, you make it bigger than it was last time. Partially because memory, like your brain doesn't remember the events, and every time you recall it, you're actually recalling the last time you recalled it, rather than the original event itself. And because you're playing up to your audience, trying to make it funnier, make them laugh more, make it more interesting. And I don't know, there's just a sense of disingenuousness about it all that makes me uncomfortable. So half the time I'm telling a story, in the back of my head, I'm like, I should just stop this right now because I feel like fake. Do you ever get that?
Yeah. Early on in my life, I could swear I remembered being born, and like I remembered the doctor's face that delivered me, and like it got to a point where at this point, well, I mean, I don't remember. I remember that I remembered it, but
right. You can't know if you really remembered it.
Okay, so now like I remember the fact that I used to remember it, but like at one point I was remembering the memory, and then later I saw a picture of the doctor and I was completely correct. But who knows if I subconsciously remembered seeing that photo before, but I don't think so.
Right, it could have been as a young child you saw that picture and then you made the memory from there.
Maybe. But like we found that in like my grandma's closet like 5 years ago or something.
I mean, it's pretty impressive though if you remember your
If it's
infancy.
true, but I don't even know. I don't even know if my own memories are correct.
Really, none of us do, which is kind of a scary thing.
Yeah.
And in that kind of way, sometimes I like to... Well, I don't like to. I feel like I kind of force myself to suppress memories that I feel are arising because I don't want to distort them. I try like to not remember things because I know that each time I remember it, it's getting further and further away from what it was. So like maybe there's a song I really like that I used to listen to. I'm like, I'm not going to listen to that song because I know that song is going to bring back memories. It's going to be this layering of distorting the memory. And I don't want to do that. I want my memories to stay intact.
Yep. Going Under by Evanescence, like the rest of the album, I've listened to so many times, but that one song I refuse to listen to because it's the one song left that like I have any nostalgia for.
Yeah, if you feed into your nostalgia too much, it kind of like fades away, I feel like.
Or like Mountain Dew Voltage, the blue stuff. One weekend at my dad's house, he was like, buy whatever soda you want, and I got some of the red Mountain Dew and the blue Mountain Dew, and I was just guzzling that all weekend. And it was like a really good weekend because it was, it was so fun because I was so hyped up on 4 liters of soda. And so, once in a while I'll have one, but like I don't want to have it too much because I don't want to ruin that memory.
Yeah, you can't indulge that too much. But at the same time, you can't go to the extreme like I sometimes do of just never bring it up again because that's, I guess we're talking about memory right now, but that's like the other end of it. Because the more you remember a thing, the more distorted the memory becomes. And if you don't remember it enough, then you just kind of lose it altogether. Like if you try to avoid a song that brings you back to your high school experience for like 30 years, maybe when you listen to it next, you won't remember your high school experience anymore. Although I guess with songs, it's pretty rooted into your into your memory. But just like memory in general, if you go a long time without remembering it, that'll probably distort it as well. So I feel like it's a lose-lose. You can't really keep your memories intact.
Yeah.
I guess now that we're talking about memory, do you want to talk about you mentioned a few times your memory issues?
It's okay. So it's some heavy stuff.
I'm
I
here
am
for
going
it.
to, okay, trigger warning. I am going to go into a little bit of self-hatred actions, broken self-preservation instinct, if you know what I mean.
Yeah.
So I was in a relationship with this person who was kind of religious and kind of conservative, and finally at one point this is like my freshman year of high school. At one point I just kind of realized, I guess, that wasn't who I was supposed to be, that I wasn't being true to myself.
So were you acting more conservatively around
Yeah,
them?
yeah.
Okay.
And like I don't know, I guess like probably constructed like this fake conservative self.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, there's nothing wrong with being conservative to a point, as long as you're not like a racist or blowing up the US Capitol. I mean, to a point. But so I woke up in the corner of my bedroom. I didn't recognize the room. I recognized the furniture, but I didn't recognize the room. I had this horrible headache, and there was a hammer in my hands, and I'm sorry.
That's right.
So, you know, I sort of figured out what I had done to myself, that I, you know, didn't want to be alive. I walked out of, you know, what I figured out was my room. I mean, there's my dresser, there's my bed, but I didn't recognize the house because we had moved a couple months prior. I walk out into the kitchen, and this dog comes up to me like, "Hey, what's wrong?" And I'm like, "Okay, I get that you know me, but I don't know you." And I've gotten most of it back. I did want to talk about this. But it's just kind of hard to think about some of this stuff.
I get that. Just say as much as you want to say.
Yeah, so I had basically my freshman year of high school is just, you know how like you'll be going about your day, and like you get random flashes of a dream that you had 2 years ago. Does that ever happen to you?
I don't know how much that happens to me.
Okay.
But yeah, let's say that does.
Okay. Well, I'm sure somebody's had that happen. So basically, 7th, 8th, and 9th grade is kind of a blur, which I wish that I had wiped out 6th grade along with it, because that was some traumatic shit.
Well, I don't know about that, but we can get back to that one.
No, it was pretty bad. Let's not get back to that.
Okay.
But yeah, so I've, you know, the past 10 years I've like been getting bits and pieces back from that, and you know, I'm not sure how much of my memories I've like completely made up or just reconstructed from bits and pieces, or how much is actually coming back. And you know, I already deal with like confidence issues, and like, you know, not believing, like literally not believing in myself, like literally doubting my own experiences,
like gaslighting yourself.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's
wow. Yeah, no, just the memory issues don't really help with that. Like, I don't know if none of our memories are completely accurate.
Right.
But, like, I literally don't know my own life.
Right. If they're 100% fabricated or not.
Right. Have you ever played Final Fantasy VII? Not to bring, well, yes, to bring this back to nerd stuff.
I have not.
I
think I know which one that is, though.
It's the one that everybody knows.
Okay, then I know about it, but I haven't played it.
Basically, the main character Cloud has undergone some psychological trauma and convinced himself that his memories are... He's convinced himself that, like, his best friend who died's memories are his own, and that his best friend didn't exist, and he's, like, merged his memories with his friend, and then, like, there's...
So, like, a coping mechanism?
Yeah.
Okay.
And there's, like, this part, like, 3/4 through the game where, like, his girlfriend is... Or, well, not his girlfriend, depending on who you ask. Ooh. Because people were edgy teenagers in 1997 and they still can't get over it, and now they're thirsting over piles of triangles that, whatever, to this day. And don't even get me started on Evangelion fans who are like into 14-year-olds. What are you doing? Just get over it. These are anime characters. Just... Anyway, God, anime fans are the worst. Anyway, there's this part, like, 3/4 through the game where Cloud's sort of girlfriend, sort of not, Tifa, goes into his mind, and he's got, like, these 3 fragments of his memory, just, like... I mean, people listening to this won't see the motion I'm doing, but it doesn't matter. Like shaking and holding his head, like...
Yeah.
Like, he's not sure which one is real, and, like, honestly... Final Fantasy VII is, like, the most accurate depiction of memory loss that I've ever seen.
Really?
Like, have you played Knights of the Old Republic?
No, sadly.
Okay.
That one's
Do you
got
know
memory
the plot
loss.
Twist? Okay, then you don't
Oh,
know
no, I do know the plot twist. Yeah. Okay, spoiler for anybody who hasn't played that game
this
yet.
game from 2003.
He is the person everybody's been talking about the whole
Yeah.
game. Yeah.
You are playing as a Sith Lord who doesn't remember he's a Sith Lord.
Yeah.
And, like, it doesn't impact the plot at all. 3/4 through the game, you find out, oh, you are actually Darth Revan. And then the rest of the game just happens. And, you know, once in a while, you can be like, hey, I'm Darth Revan. People will be like, okay, yeah, I don't believe you. It doesn't impact the plot at all. It wasn't the driving force for his character. It doesn't affect him afterwards. It's just there for shock value.
So this is a bad thing.
Yeah. And I love Knights of the Old Republic. But, like, so many stories use it as, like, an excuse for exposition. Oh, you were there, you know,
Yeah,
5
Amnesia
years
is a
ago.
common storytelling
Yeah.
device.
And so, like, with my animation thing, I'm sort of, like, trying to subvert that and, like, use my own experiences.
Okay. Use memory loss, but not in the tropey way.
Right.
Yeah.
And, like, I've got, you know, backstory that I could do that with, but, like, I'm intentionally avoiding it because guess what? You won't get those memories back completely.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's better if you don't.
Yeah, I think one thing, I don't remember where I've seen it, but I think one thing I've seen before in a book is characters remembering past events. And then they remember a past event, and then as a reader, you're like, okay, so that was their history. And then multiple chapters go by, and they remember the same event again, but it's different this time. So now it's like, oh, neither of these might be the correct version. Like, the author is introducing an unreliable narrator, and now you don't know what to believe of what this character has gone through. I've seen that kind of used before in the non-traditional, oh, I've got amnesia way.
Yeah.
That's usually pretty interesting and compelling as a reader. This thing you were saying before makes me think of one thing that I've kind of just generally worried about for the past, several years. So there's this common thing, at least common in like movies and TV shows and whatnot, but also maybe in real life as well, where you're a person who's going to therapy. Maybe you're going to a psychoanalyst kind of therapy, and they're asking you about your childhood and your mom and all this stuff. Maybe trying to look for childhood trauma that you've been suppressing and you don't remember it, and it's the cause of your problems. So they're asking about this stuff, trying to, like, maybe you're even under hypnotism, and they're trying to prompt out these memories from you to see what you've been keeping back from them, what you've been, like, keeping from yourself. And then the person remembers these horrible things, like, my uncle touched me when I was a kid, and I didn't, like, realize it was bad at the time. I forgot about it, like, I suppressed it, and now I just realized that the reason I've been this way these past 20 years is due to that. And a lot of the times, what happened did happen. But there's also cases where a therapist prompts false memories in the person. The thing didn't happen. but the person believes it did because they're hypnotized looking for these answers. So they made up an answer.
Oh, shit.
What?
No, just that is some heavy stuff.
I know, and that's like, how do you fix that problem? Because once you think you've found some answer to a lot of your life's issues in the form of childhood trauma, and it feels very real to you, and it very well might be real, but it also there's a chance that it's not, and that it was another coping mechanism, looking for a way to have a solution to what's wrong with me. God. So, I mean, that just kind of goes to the horrible untrustworthiness of memories.
Yeah. And like it's gotten to the point where like I don't even know if my memory loss incident is even true, because like I've it's like this major event in my life that like I've also tried to avoid talking about.
Yeah.
But then I also have talked about it with some people.
I mean, there's a certain way that even if these events that are large, important events didn't actually happen, they're still true in the sense that they matter to you. They still have shaped you and your thought process. So even if, I don't know, you're going under psychoanalysis and your uncle didn't actually rape you as a young child, the fact that now you think he did and you've thought this way for a few years now will influence your decisions and who you are. So this memory, whether it's true or false, is still important and probably should be treated as such. But maybe that's the good default, is to lean on the side of these memories I have are real, rather than these memories I have, rather than to default gaslight yourself or to default doubt yourself. Probably it might be more healthy to just default believe your own memories. One thing I found, just I guess in life in general, especially as I get older, it seems like for the most part kind of live in this like memory bubble that follows you. Like the past few years you can remember easily for the most part. And then like the further in time back you get, the fewer memories you have of it. Even though maybe like when I was 15, I could easily remember a lot of things that happened to me when I was 7. But now it's like I might have one memory of when I was 7 or 2. And like maybe if you put a certain smell in front of my face or play a certain song, I'll have a few more. You can get them out of me. But just like trying to recall them just in my normal thinking, I can't do it. So like my childhood becomes more and more distant and less a part of me.
Yeah, and like at a certain point, you become like a ship of Theseus of yourself.
Yeah. Do you want to explain the ship of Theseus for any listener that is unfamiliar?
Okay, so Theseus, was he the guy that killed the Minotaur, or was that Perseus?
I don't remember.
Some Greek demigod has a ship, but then the ship gets put in a museum, but like the wood rots away, and little by little they discard the wood and replace it. At what point, and eventually, like, the ship is completely reconstructed out of new pieces of wood. Is the original ship the one that was rebuilt piece by piece, or is it the pile of wood sitting wherever in a landfill, in modern terms? I don't know what the original thing would be. Like, is it the old pieces of wood that are no longer a ship, or is it the ship that got replaced piece by piece?
Yeah, like what's the true ship of Theseus?
Yeah.
Is it whatever makes up what we're calling the ship at this moment? Is it the very original pieces that were called that? Is it some combination of the two? Is it neither? Is there like
is it both?
Or both? Is it an essence of like something that doesn't have to do with the material parts attached to it?
And like with brain cells,
Right.
That, all the cells in your body are only 7 years old. So like,
yeah, you're
in essence,
recycled.
You're not even, I'm not the person that I was, when I was 18.
Yeah, like in a physical, fake. Like the cells that make up your body. Yeah, you're not who you were.
And I mean, like, that's part of the reason I have this unshakable belief in a soul.
Unshakable, really?
Yeah.
Okay, well, we can talk about that after we are done with talking about memory. And
I don't know, that there's just this, there's like, you have an identity, like no matter how many times your cells replace themselves, you have an identity going back, like even to when you were a kid. Even those memories that you don't remember, like you were saying, even if you don't remember something, it is part of what shaped you. And even if those cells died decades ago, it's still at the core of who you are. And like I was saying before, my, self-hurty problem there a couple of years, 10 years ago, I was this semi-conservative creationist something or other, and that wasn't who I was. Even though I had grown up believing in the creation myth, and for a time didn't believe it and then believed it again.
Wait, you didn't believe it and then believed it again? When was the believed it again? Was that the 14-year-old?
Yeah.
Okay, that's that part.
Like, the person I am now is like, and especially since last summer, I had like, with the protests, I mentally broke, and you can ask Ariel like how fucked up I was last summer. And like, I did some soul searching. I started doing yoga and stuff. I know I don't look like I do yoga, but I just got back to the core of who I was, even with things that were not part of my identity before. Therapy, even though my therapist turned out to be homophobic. So stopped seeing her. There are pieces of your identity that you haven't even found.
Yeah.
Like, when I was a little kid, guess what? I tried to make a VHS tape out of cardboard and tape and paper, drawing each frame. Guess what? I'm an animator now. Guess what? I didn't even want to be an animator when I was a little kid. I just, they're just...
Right. I mean, with that, you could probably search back through all of your memories and find something relevant to what you're doing now. Kind of in the sense that, like, within everything is a universe of its own. Like, everything's a microcosm. Like, you could find something relevant to anything else. Like, if I become like a airline pilot, I could probably find a memory of when I was 6 and did something having to do with planes, and think like, oh, I've been wanting it this whole time. But then equally, if I was a firefighter, I could look at when I was 6 and something with fire trucks or hoses and go, I've been wanting this whole time. I think there's its malleability of memory that allows for multiple interpretations, which I think can make us feel as if we're on a set path, or we're discovering ourselves, the secret self that we have. This like Socrates-esque like essentialism, that like we were born with an essence, we were born with something that we wanted to do, and we're only discovering it. I think that can be nice to think, but I'd more on the side of we invent ourselves. We're just making up.
Well, but if I was to start playing clarinet tomorrow,
right,
I wouldn't have any sort of thing that was like, oh, I was always destined to play clarinet.
I think you could find something.
I don't think so.
I really hope you start playing clarinet tomorrow.
Or if I started carving a chair. Oh, I was always into woodworking. No.
I'm sure you've worked with wood at least once in your
life.
I
have. Well, okay. All right. Fine. Well... Well, great. Now I can't really talk about my belief in destiny.
Oh no, you should still talk about it. But before that, you were saying something.
This podcast is sponsored by Squarespace. I can't talk.
No, it's a quote. It's not an advertisement.
Okay. No, I was joking.
You were saying how even though you can't remember things, they've still made you. And there's this quote that I have had in my little list of quotes for a long time.
I'm just gonna stretch.
Oh, okay. The quote goes, I cannot remember the books I've read any more than the meals I have eaten. Even so, they have made me. And just like that.
Yes.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter if you can't remember your memories. They still helped construct who you are right now. So, you have a belief in souls and destiny.
Yeah.
These are topics that I find interesting.
Okay, atheist. Here we go. All right.
You say atheist as if we're in opposition. How would you describe yourself? If not,
okay, so the thing is, the more we find, and I'm not a scientifically minded person, but like, I have something bookmarked on my computer, but I don't know it off the top of my head, but basically, like, quantum physics is like proving that things are predetermined. And that's not to say we don't have free will.
I'm listening.
We do have free will.
Okay.
But that free will is influenced by like past events that have happened to us. Like, one thing
Wait, so you're saying there's destiny and free will?
Yeah.
You're a compatibilist?
Right, because...
Okay.
Okay, so the way I see it, destiny and fate are two different things. Destiny exists, fate does not. Fate would say that
Yeah, explain the
That
difference.
everything is... Fate would say that everything is predetermined and nothing is a choice, but destiny, the way I interpret it is... Am I too far away from the microphone?
Possibly.
The way I interpret destiny is that destiny builds on the past to determine the future. Fate just says it was all determined before, I guess. I don't know. It's hard to put into words.
It sounds like both are determinism. Like there's a series of cause and events, or cause and effects, that goes on through time and is inescapable. Is this not what destiny is?
Well, because, I mean, it is turtles all the way down, like, what did you have for breakfast?
Cereal. Had some blueberry and... blueberry and some sort of flax cereal.
Why did you buy that?
Well, it's a brand that I like to buy because it's a healthier cereal alternative to 90% of the cereal aisle. And because it's vegan.
Isn't a lot of cereal vegan?
Yeah, actually a lot of cereal is, but a lot of cereal also is vegan and quite unhealthy. Like Cinnamon Toast Crunch, for instance.
Yeah, well, yeah.
Is there another why question? Because I'm ready.
Yeah, actually, okay, I just found out that some types of gum has gelatin in them, and
like chewing gum?
I was chewing gum like a week ago, and I was like, oh crap, this has gelatin in it.
Oh. Yeah, I used to be a big gum chewer in high school, but I haven't done gum in like 8 years.
I don't very often. Anyway, I'll cut to the point here. Why did you choose to get a healthy cereal? Because blah, blah, blah. Maybe you've had tricks too much throughout your life and you're sick of it. Maybe you haven't had tricks before and you had that blueberry stuff before 100 times and you like it.
Right.
And you can trace that back to, you were a kid and your parents chose that cereal when they were grocery shopping. And then why did your parents choose it? Go back all the way to the Big Bang, turtles all the way down.
Right. Yes.
So like everything is determined by the past.
Yes.
That... How do I say?
Yeah, where does the free will come in? Because I don't see it.
Because you're still making the decision that shapes the future.
Right, it will, but it's not free. I do make choices, but my choice, it's the way I see it is it's like a function. You put in X, you get out Y, or whatever, vice versa. Like if you put me in environments with all these certain stimuli, I will choose a thing, and then my choice is blueberry flax cereal. If you put me in a different environment, I'll choose a different thing based off of the factors you put into this equation.
But still another person with different experiences would choose different cereals.
Because of their different experiences. Because of their different past. Because they have a different function in their brain,
Right, and the entire universe is one big equation.
Sure.
Everything is positive. Everything is a +1 or -1 or 0 atom.
Sure.
And
I just don't think everything allows for any freedom.
Spheres orbiting around each other, like electrons or planets or galaxies. You just keep getting bigger and bigger. And I'm sounding like really high or like I'm starting a cult or something, and this is why I try not to talk about the universe or anything, because I end up sounding like I'm starting a cult.
It's a great thing to talk about, though. It's a fascinating subject. I mean, I think we're so far in agreement, at least with what we've said. I just don't see where the freedom comes into this equation, Like, yes, it's true that my individualized experience will have a different outcome if you put in the same variables as if you put those into your brain. We'll make different choices. That's not because we have some sort of free will. It's just we have a different past. So the equations that are being run lead to slightly different results. But we can't really make a difference. We can't all of a sudden somehow put our hand in outside of the string of cause and effects and change the equation. It just goes how it will go, But
if you chose not to do that, then you're also doing that because of past decisions, either intentionally contradicting it or not.
Right.
So we're all slaves to fate or destiny. And again, that's what my animated series is about. How your future is determined by your past and how removing memories would fuck that up. Anyway, getting back into self-promotion here. But yeah, ultimately that series is just like all my life experiences. And I mean, I say that as a 25-year-old without many life experiences yet. But yeah, the difference between destiny and fate is I think whether you're looking at the past or whether you're looking at the future.
Fate is the past, destiny is the future? Is that how you would characterize it?
Yeah. And like, I would say like destiny has many paths to the same end, whereas
Okay.
fate is just a straight line. Destiny, has the possibility to branch out, but like is still going in the same direction.
Okay.
I don't know.
Here's a difference I see. Maybe not between fate and destiny, but between determinism and fatalism.
Sure.
So determinism, variable 1 outputs variable 2 for every single thing that happens in the universe ever. This is just it's determined based off of previous events. It's just a simple cause and effect relationship between everything. And then fatalism would be like that, and then taking the attitude on top of it of why bother even doing anything? Like what's going to happen is going to happen, so I don't need to worry about anything. So there's a sort of like negative attitude attributed onto the determinism aspect that I would say fatalism is. Fatalism is looking at it and thinking that there's no reason to do anything or try anything differently because you can't anyway. So I think the difference is determinism. It's not like you can do anything differently, but you should still care about things that happen because you can still enjoy your experience. Other people can still enjoy their experience. Your actions will still make the world a better or a worse place. So it's not just like, who gives a fuck? I'll just sit here on my couch and do nothing. You might be doing that in either way. But if you allow yourself to be affected by, the knowledge of determinism, that could go many different ways. You could be a type of person who sits on their couch and does nothing, or you could try to influence the world in a more positive direction.
Well, I mean, what is the meaning of life if not finding your own direction? And for some people, that might be making the world a better place for other people. For some people, it might just be sitting on your couch watching Netflix because that's what you enjoy.
Here, there's one thing you brought up before, the unshakable belief in souls. And then it was talking about the ship of Theseus. So I mentioned possibility of the ship of Theseus, the true ship, being in this essence of it that lies outside of the material aspects. So it's not about the wood that's there or the wood that's replaced. It's about like the idea of the ship, or maybe the like experience of the ship, even though the ship doesn't have one. But in the case of a person, the experience of the person. And I would submit to you that this doesn't have to equate to a soul, because in the same way as, for instance, all the cells in your body get exchanged every 7 years, and now you're a completely new physical person, but yet you carry the same memories. This could be the exact same situation as you transfer memory from one SD card to another. The physical information is completely different, and yet the data is shared. Or if you, replace all the parts of a computer and rebuild it, you still have the data on it, or whatnot. You can transfer it between physical entities. It doesn't mean this computer has a soul.
Well, Shepard,
especially not
does this unit have a soul?
Especially not as an eternal soul. Certainly, the data will die.
Well, I mean, I don't know. Like a couple days ago, I was just having such a difficult time concentrating, and like it felt like I'm putting this in terms, based on my own understanding of the soul. And I know you'll probably disagree, but
that's fine.
It felt like the download speed of my soul from the cloud, the cosmic cloud, was just, not getting into this body, this brain. Just like there was some sort of interference, like my cosmic internet was lagging.
Okay.
Like I was just a human body on autopilot, and
right.
like trying desperately to like access that.
So are you a subscriber to the idea that brains don't create consciousness, but they are receptors of consciousness? Like your brain is the radio or the television, and consciousness is the television or radio signal coming from elsewhere?
I guess, because if a baby is born with no senses, and I'm not talking about like Helen Keller, I'm talking about no taste, no smell, no sense of touch.
Beyond Helen Keller, okay.
They still would have like the potential to be a person if that brain was transplanted into another body.
I mean, even if it wasn't, surely they would still have an internal self if they had no sensations.
Yeah, like,
or so I would imagine.
What would that person even think about? Like, if you have no outside input, what would a brain completely isolated from the universe even think about? Would it know anything?
That's true. It might not even have the ability to arise consciousness because if, like what I was saying before, your brain is a function, there's no input. So how could there be output? I think we overhype consciousness and play it up to be more than it is. But that is interesting to think about.
Maybe, but if we don't, then like, what's the point of this?
Of everything you're talking about?
And I mean, yeah, I did just say, what's the meaning of life if not to enjoy it? But like,
is that the question? What's the meaning of it?
No, that was rhetorical.
Oh, okay.
But I'm sorry.
That's right.
404 error.
Okay, so this is the way I would see it. It could be what you perhaps were inclined to agreeing with, of the brain as a receptor of an outside consciousness. It could be that. I don't think we have enough data to say that is not happening. Like, we can't conclusively deny that as an option. However, I think the data we do have equally or more likely suggests that brains create consciousness. So then, in both cases, if you have a malfunctioning brain, you have a malfunctioning consciousness, I guess. Because in one case, your radio brain has a dial shut off or some wires crossed or whatever, so it can't make full use of the stream of consciousness that is coming in from, the cosmic internet. And in the other case, your brain just has some metaphorical wires crossed, some neurons crossed or whatever, so it can't produce its own consciousness effectively. So I think the thing that's happening would be the same result in either scenario. You know what I'm saying?
But like, I don't want to live in a world where dementia wipes out everything you are, where there's not a true self somewhere else in the universe.
I mean, I don't want to live in that world either, but I think that is the world we live in, which is maybe why we should focus our efforts on stopping dementia.
Well, yeah, definitely.
Through like technological intervention.
Right.
Because yeah, that is very sad when old people forget who they are on a minute basis or hour basis.
And like, but the thing about that is sometimes they do slip in and out of it. Sometimes they can access who they are.
Right. Sometimes they're completely lucid.
Yeah.
And it's just everything seems fine. And then the next second they don't know who you are.
My great aunt and great uncle both had dementia, but my great uncle was good in the long term, but just wasn't good moment to moment.
Yeah.
My great aunt was good moment to moment, but not long term. So like, my grandma would visit their home, and all siblings, not like great aunt, great uncle, married. They were all not that. They were all siblings.
Okay.
So my grandma visits their nursing home and plays cards with them on Saturdays. And, my great aunt would say something weird, and my great uncle would look at my grandma like, oh, geez, look at her losing her memory. And then, my great uncle would say something weird, and my great aunt would look at my grandma, oh, look at him. Just each one could recognize that the other one was losing it, but didn't recognize it in themselves. And it's kind of funny, but it's kind of tragic too.
Oh, I think that speaks to much more about human life than just dementia.
Yeah.
I think generally speaking, that goes with everything. Like, you recognize when someone else is making an ass of themselves, or they're overconfident, or they're bad at something that they think they're good at, or they're, not funny, or they're ugly, or they're whatever it is, whatever characteristic, you can recognize that easily in other people. And then when it's equally as evident in yourself, you don't see it at all.
Mm-hmm. Like, I know I'm socially inept, but like, the second I see someone who's like a little bit weird, I'm like, oh, look at them. Trying not to be judgmental, but still, society has told me to, what's with that person. But, when I do, like, do you remember, when we used to work together, as soon as I would put a plate down for somebody and then like walk back to the back, and would like,
yeah,
I would like
do
this
Mayo.
Weird clapping thing in front. And I don't know why I did that. And I recognized that it was weird, but it was just a habit, and I couldn't stop doing that.
It was just part of what made you you.
Oh, God. And there's an unshakable part of the identity is weird habits and cracking my knuckles right there. I'm doing this.
I crack my knuckles too. Yeah. You do bring up a good point that I just now I'm thinking about too, because there's a sort of contradictory other side of it too, because in the opposite way that we can easily notice other people's flaws but have a difficulty noticing our own, at the same time we are our own worst critic.
Yeah.
So like, you thinking that you're doing the hands behind the back like clapping thing, was all weird. I didn't really notice that it was a weird thing. I was like, oh, that's just David. Like, or sorry,
No,
Shiloh.
I was David at the time.
You were David at the time. It's something that it'll take me a few hours to
No, don't worry about
sink in.
As long as someone's not doing it intentionally to piss me off, like, I don't care. Oh my god, fucking Caitlyn Jenner is running for governor.
Really? What state does Caitlyn Jenner even live in?
California.
I guess I should have figured.
And like California. some conservative host of something like dead named her, and she's like, it's okay, I don't subscribe to cancel culture, blah blah blah. Why are you like, you're trans, but you're like actively working with the people that oppress trans people? What is wrong with you?
Well, maybe it's because she's rich.
Yeah.
That it seems to be, it's hard to fully be on the team of liberals when you're rolling in dough.
Yeah, I mean, basically we have a conservative party and a fascist party. And no representation for people with actual compassion.
I see that a lot on the internet, of how they're like memes of other countries are like, if you look at America, like what they think of as the left is really just the center for like international politics, and then the right in America is like extreme far right. Well,
did you ever see the post that was like, if you came up with the idea for public libraries today, people would call you a crazy communist.
Yeah, if you tried to introduce Social Security right now, you'd get shot down hard.
Literally shot down.
If you tried to come up with public drinking fountains today, Nestle would destroy you.
Oh yeah. God fucking Nestle.
Yeah, they're pretty bad.
Oh.
But yeah, I do apologize for dead naming you though.
No. Don't worry about it.
It's kind of a thing. I don't really even say people's names very much to begin with. It's like I'm having a conversation with someone. I might say their name once over the course of 3 hours.
Yeah. Like I never say people's names.
And that's how I write.
Part of that is like self-consciousness, worrying I'm going to mispronounce it or something. I don't know. Like, your name is one syllable. But like, what if I mess up that one syllable? Wud? Yeah. I don't know.
Yeah. It doesn't really matter. A lot of people do mess up my name, actually. Usually in the spoken situation where they're asking me, like, I'm meeting someone and they just refuse to accept that my name is Wade for whatever reason, just because they never met a Wade probably. So they're like, oh, what's your name? It's Wade. And they're like, Wayne? I'm like, no, Wade.
I knew a Mary Smith once, and I could not remember her name.
Her first name, or like hyphenated Mary
Smith?
Smith?
Her entire name, Mary Smith.
Okay.
It was just so hard for me to remember, just because it was so common.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Hey, you. That's it. That's
yeah.
what you say to them. We were just talking about something right before that. Right. The contradictory way that we are our own worst critic.
Right.
So like you can recognize your own faults sometimes, at least.
Do you rearrange this stuff?
No,
when you're
it's just
editing?
Gonna be random.
So this is just going to be like, okay.
I mean, okay. Are you a listener of the podcast?
I try to. I've listened to Ariel and Josh and Brooklyn, and I started on Craig and Caden.
Wait, you're listening to the two at once?
Yes.
I mean, you do you. Yeah, it depends on what I'm talking about.
I started the episode with Matt.
Oh, okay. Yeah, it depends on who I'm talking to and what we're talking about. But sometimes it's very chaotic or sporadic where we switch between like talking about a thing, go off on a tangent, and have to get back on track, go on a tangent and get back on track, go on 3 tangents. Mm-hmm. Yeah, it happens. Sometimes more than others. Anyway, getting back on track of what we were intending on talking about.
Hey, in The Last Jedi, when Luke talks about his memory of the night that Ben turned to the dark side, and then Ben tells his memory of the night he turned to the dark side and how unreliable memory is, let's talk about Star Wars and, movies and cinematic universes taking the place of mythology in society. And, I don't know, maybe religion? Not really. Science is sort of like taken over religion, but science fiction has taken over mythology.
Okay. What do you mean by that?
I don't know.
Just in like
these larger than life people that we look up to.
Okay.
And like the Greeks had like vases and stuff that had like myths written around.
Right.
Like,
the Amphoros is. Anyway.
Sure. Whatever it's called. And then, you go to a movie theater and here's a gigantic 128 ounce cup with Yoda on it. You know, it's kind of the same thing.
It's called child size because it's the size of a small child.
Oh God, I love Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
Oh man.
But you said take over. I wonder if instead of sci-fi taking over myths, it's that sci-fi, like myths have always been sci-fi. You know, they've always been the same thing.
Well, yeah. I mean, Marvel like literally has a Norse god as one of the main characters.
And like, I've always kind of wondered this: how much, if you were living in like 450 BCE Greece, you would actually believe in Zeus and Poseidon and whatnot, or you would believe in like the epic stories that like Homer supposedly would tell, or like the plays that would happen. I think it very well might have just been how we would look at modern movies and like the Marvel movies. Like it's a fiction story that we like for entertainment and for some sort of small amount of wisdom about the human condition. Because you know how you see like the Jungian tropes, or not tropes, the archetypes that appear in storytelling. There's the idea that these things have a deeper meaning than we normally accept. So you go to the ancient Greek amphitheater to see the Iliad performed or whatever it is. And it's not that you're taking this story seriously. You don't believe Aphrodite actually intervened in the Trojan War. But it's, you know, it's a fun, it's a story. Yeah. It's sci-fi. Or like fantasy.
And like if you want to compare the Prince of Egypt to the book of Exodus to the actual whatever actually happened when the Israelite or Hebrews left Egypt, you know, there's probably a small amount of overlap.
Very small, because there's no evidence that there were ever a large amount of Jews in Egypt to begin with.
There's evidence that there's some.
Right, but there's like the taking like weeks to trek from Egypt to Jerusalem or wherever, parting the Red Sea, like at least 50,000 people that would have left the trail did not leave a trail because it didn't happen.
Yeah.
But
well, and like, you know, oh, the Nile turned red with blood. It was probably just clay. Oh, locusts, you know, okay, sometimes there's a lot of locusts just with their breeding cycles, and I guess the same with frogs, maybe?
You're being even more charitable than I would be.
Well, and you know, the Great Flood, you know, so many cultures have the story of a Great Flood, probably just the end of the Ice Age.
Yeah. I mean, there's been plenty of great floods as far as like a region being flooded. No, not so much worldwide floods. Even if you have a end of a large ice age, even if all the ice caps melted, it wouldn't be global. Like no land. There would still be plenty of land. So yeah, like you look at like the Black Sea, like there's evidence that it flooded before, like 40,000 years ago, which still doesn't match up with the Genesis timeline. But so yeah, like you would have within the oral tradition, or like within the, I guess, collective human psyche passed down from person to person, stories of giant floods, which make it into, you know, religious texts.
Or like, you know, just our concept of ancient history is so skewed that, you know, it's everything before us is like this, we see it as like this small amount of time. Like people like to point out, you know, the time between the construction of the Great Pyramids and Cleopatra was bigger than the amount of time between Cleopatra and us.
Right. Or like that with the mammoths, and like there were mammoths at the same time the pyramids were being built.
Jeez. And like I read a thing a couple weeks ago that Greeks 2,000 years ago dug up, you know, these skeletons that have armor and clothes, and they're these huge skeletons, and they were probably just bear skeletons, and the ancient Greeks that were ancient to the ancient Greeks as we see them,
they were doing archaeology,
probably just saw, oh, these are the, what do you call them, titans, and
or the giants,
let's, you know, dress them up in outfits befitting of their regal majesty and rebury them.
Yeah, that's interesting to think about, though, that ancient Greeks were doing archaeology, finding even more ancient things. Yeah, the amount of people that read into things like that today, like thinking that the pyramids were built with the help of aliens, I can only imagine how much more insane it would have been for people 2,000 years ago doing archaeology or looking at the past. They would even have more wild of ideas of what happened at that time.
I mean, do you remember that conversation that you, me, and Quinn were having one time, where I was like, wherever you see pyramids, you see dragons in their mythology?
I think I remember something about it. No details. Why?
I don't know. Just this small theory that I sort of believe in but don't believe in myself. It's more of a reality headcanon, I guess, than an actual theory. That like maybe dragons were aliens and maybe they did
Yeah, I
build the
remember you
pyramids.
telling me about this.
But like also maybe not. Probably, like I was saying about bear skeletons. Maybe they just found dinosaur skeletons and they're like, hey, this kind of looks like a lizard. What if it had wings? Oh, look, here's a pterodactyl, here's a T-Rex. Wait, oh, do these wings belong to the T-Rex? Oh, wow, look, that's a dragon. And it breathed fire! Who knows?
Well, there's another reason for why dragons might appear in so many myths and throughout so many cultures, and that's because of our common evolutionary history. Back when we were living in trees, about like 120 million years ago or so, pre-ape, more of something like a tarsier, except bigger. When we were living in little trees, eating fruits and whatnot, our biggest rival, our biggest predator, because we weren't apex predators until quite recently, our biggest predator were snakes. So there's this kind of inbuilt fear of reptiles that humans had for a long time, and to some degree we still have, because it's hard to shake off things like that. Like we still have useless appendixes and whatnot. It's hard for evolution to undo things. Yeah, and we have all these other extraneous things that we don't need, and one of them is probably fear of snakes, because I had to look out for that for probably a good like multiple millions of years. So it's kind of ingrained into your psyche as an instinct. And that's one of the reasons, or maybe the main reason, why we're so good at color perception. Many mammals aren't nearly as good at perceiving colors as we are. And the theory is that we had to look out for, snakes' stripes. They're hard to spot. If you have the vision of deers who only see like in green tones, basically, then the snakes would just blend in with the rest of the foliage. Where if you have human vision, you can see, oh, that's orange, that's yellow, that's black.
And like, did you ever, apparently every culture, as their language develops, their words for colors develop at the same, like in the same order.
Right, they get more and more complex.
Like it's white and black, and then you add red, and then you add green, and then like yellow, and like blue is always the last thing in every single culture. And like there's studying tribes that are still like still indigenous tribes
that don't have blue.
Sometimes they don't.
Yeah.
And like you show people like a bunch of green squares and one blue square, if they don't have a word for blue, they won't be able to figure out which one's the blue one, which one's the green one.
Yeah, they just see it all as one.
Whereas if you ask someone who knows lime and Granny Smith and Viridian and
right, yeah,
Peridot, they're going to be able to name like each individual color of green.
Yeah.
Like even in the Odyssey, going back to Greek myths, the Odyssey, or maybe it's the Iliad. No, it's probably both.
Yeah, probably both.
Repeatedly says the wine dark sea.
Yeah, Kate and I talked about this in our episode.
Oh,
it's pretty interesting
really?
stuff.
Oh, well, I didn't get to that.
Oh no, we can talk about it again. It's interesting. Yeah, the wine dark sea.
And I don't know if you guys like actually got to the core of that.
No, not really. We just talked about it peripherally.
Yeah, I asked my classics professor one time, why does it say the wine dark sea? And he says, well, they didn't really need to have a color for blue, and like the way Greeks at that time talked about color, it was more about comparisons than the actual color itself.
Right.
Like wine is something that you can, it's dark and it sucks you in, and it just, once it gets a hold of you, you know.
A lot of people interpret that passage as well in a different way. I mean, along those kind of lines that like Homer or, whoever actually wrote it wasn't trying to express its literal color, but was just being poetic.
Yeah.
Yeah. Like wine dark.
And like it probably just sounded good in ancient Greek.
Right. Yeah. Like it's an evocative phrase. Like it makes you think of something. And that's really what you want to do when you're telling a story, is like produce images in the mind.
Yeah.
So if you just say blue, I mean, wine dark is more expressive than blue.
Yeah.
Or black, or whatever the sea looked like that day. But yeah, it's amazing to think about how much language shapes our thinking and like our perception of the world. There's this one example that I don't remember quite exactly, but it's in the book The Information by James Gleick, which is an amazing book. But he's talking about kind of the history of language and information over time as it gets more and more complex. And if you go to, I think it's in Siberia, there are like cultures that don't actually have like language the same way that we do, because we use language in the form of like logic a lot. We have like a very structured language, and I think their language is much more. They don't have a written language, and that's the basis of it. If you only have a spoken language, things are much more like experience based and anecdotal, and not so much. It's less like, I guess scientific is the term. It's less.
Yeah, I was going to say like hypothetical, like not literally hypothetical, but like a hypothesis sort of
That's okay. This
structure, like if then because.
Right. That's the thing I'm looking for. In languages across the world where they don't have written languages, what you often find is they don't really have the ability to abstract ideas, to come up with like non-reality based thoughts. Like if you think of something, if you say a word, it's directly based on an observation. It's not based on a imagining. So for instance, you could go to these cultures in Siberia.
For instance, right there.
Yeah. So you could go to these cultures in Siberia and perform the following syllogism to them. Something like, bears that live in Canada are brown. I saw a bear in Canada. What color was the bear? And they would say, I don't know. I haven't been to Canada. Like they wouldn't complete the syllogism. Their thinking would not allow for it, because all the bears they've seen are white. So they would say, I haven't been there. I don't know. The bears I've seen are white. They wouldn't think in these abstract terms.
What?
And I find that very interesting. It's based on like what you've seen rather than what might be.
Have you seen this dog named Bunny on Instagram?
Probably not. I have an Instagram, but I don't really use it.
Her humans set up some buttons.
Oh,
it's
no,
part of
actually,
a wider experiment.
I have seen that. Adrian was just showing me that yesterday.
There's a couple.
A bunch of buttons on the ground, and they
the
press
sheepdog.
them to say, yes, yeah.
That like they start out with outside food, water,
right,
and now she's getting to things like why dog,
yes,
or looking in the mirror,
concerned.
Who this bunny, yeah, concerned.
Yeah, there's buttons on the ground that when you press the button, it says a word like a robot. AI voice says the word. So then the dog can press on the word.
I think it's recordings of the humans.
Oh, sure, yeah. The dog presses on the word dog, and it says dog. And then you can press dog, sleep now. And then dog going to sleep now. Or like walk, please.
Or like there's another dog that's part of this wider experiment named Stella. She's a pit bull, I think, or like a pit bull mix. Doesn't matter what breed she is. But one time... So she likes to go to the beach, and one time the button for beach was broken. So she says, I forgot what it was, like, mad, want go outside big water or something.
Yeah.
Like
think of another way to say it.
Yeah. So like dogs have the mind of maybe if these dogs had the ability to formulate sentences with articles,
right,
like would they would probably be just as smart as like a 7-year-old human.
Right. Yeah. I think
but again, like they can't see the same colors we can, so maybe they wouldn't. Like a lot of what little kids learn is red, orange, yellow, green, blue, blah blah blah.
Well, if that's the case, if you're going with that, then a mantis shrimp hypothetically should be able to form more complex sentences than us, because it can see.
But are they smart enough to press buttons to say want outside big water?
We'll have to find out. We haven't done the experiment.
Well, I think
we discount
a shrimp
animals.
would want to go outside big water, but it would be pretty distressing if they weren't.
It's already there, so I don't think it would even express that sentence, because you're literally right there right now. But yeah, I think generally we discount the intelligence of animals, and in every passing day for the past 6,000 years, we've been slowly learning to discount them less and less. And I think maybe one day we'll realize that we are literally no more intelligent than they are. And the reason that we can count on ourselves as being quote unquote more intelligent is only due to the shoulders we stand upon the massive information that we've been collectively building over time.
Right. Like you can't go one-on-one against a lion.
Right.
You will get shredded. But if you have a gun that other people invented and like a ladder that somebody else built, then you can like climb up that ladder and shoot the lion.
Yeah. So I think really written language, or at least recorded language, is probably the main reason that we have for being quote unquote more intelligent than other animals. And if we gave those same tools to other animals, I think they would catch up to us.
Well, like rats can untie knots.
Right. And maybe not, I mean, not, obviously not every single animal. I don't think a jellyfish would. They literally don't have brains.
Well, yeah.
But like mammals,
I mean to certain
birds.
Yeah. Well, I mean, Alex the gray parrot.
Yeah. They just
Coco the gorilla.
Right. And like, okay, so here's another one that I always love. Chimpanzees actually are better at us at short-term memory. There's this little game that you do. There's like 1 through 9 on a little grid of digits. You got a screen, numbers show up like a split second, like 1 second, and then they go away. And then you've got a human and a chimpanzee, and you both have to press the numbers. And you start with like 1 digit, easy. Start with 2 digits, easy. Keep going up in digits. And then by like digits number 8, the human can't do it anymore. And the chimpanzee can keep going to like digit 16. They can faithfully each time just like do remember all the digits as they appeared on the screen for that split second.
But is that because they're learning about numbers as like this abstract thing that they were trained to do, or is it because like do they understand that the number 5 is da 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 da? Or did I do that the right number of times?
I don't know, but
I hope I did.
I mean, yeah, I guess that's a harder question. Like, what are they conceiving these numbers as? Like, what do these numbers mean to them?
Yeah. I actually, that very experiment, not to self-promote again, but I have that in like chronologically, the first scene in my animated series. I've got like this robot's like being interviewed to make sure that like she's built correctly and stuff, that I accidentally copied from this like teaser trailer they made for Detroit Become Human like 7 years ago or something. I accidentally copied it like almost line for line before I had even seen it. Maybe I did see it subconsciously. Hey, going back to memory. Anyway, so I rewrote that scene and like, yeah, I used that thing where like, you know, she hits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, blah, blah, blah. And then like this lab worker is talking to her and she's like looking over at him and blah, blah, blah. And then she can't do it when she's like concentrating. And she's like, what does that mean? You know, is there something wrong with me? He says, you know, no, it just means that you're more like us than we had intended or something like that.
Yeah, she can't multitask.
Yeah. Like she has the brain of a human even though she's a robot. Anyway, self-promotion. Hello.
Yeah, there's also another video that I like that it's the side-by-side of this man who is trying to fit his suitcase into a airplane overhead compartment.
Yes, I've seen
and
that
then next
one.
to it
yes.
is a like a little baby, well, not baby pig. It's, you know, one of those small pigs who is fitting these like blocks into these colored holes, and it's like the pig fits all the blocks into the holes faster than the human can get his thing into the compartment.
Or did you see the one of Cuphead, the tutorial level where there's like, this is my 5-year-old son playing Cuphead, and this is, you know, Dan Takahashi or whatever his name is, the game reviewer that can't get past this tutorial stage.
Yeah. It just makes me think that generally speaking, well, even actually in every case, I think humans are only smart in the collective. And I mean that even in the case of the individual, because an individual is smart based on the prior collective.
Like if you went back in time and, you know, you're like, you know, someone says, what's 57 plus 137? And you pull out your phone and you're like, oh, here's the calculator, 37 plus 157. I think that's the numbers I said. Hey, there we go. Memory again. 194. Well, how do you know that? Well, I'm using this thing. Well, how do you know how to use that? Well, because I have been using it since I was 15. Well, how does it work? It's lightning in a rock with some really hot sand over the surface of it.
Yeah. Yeah, it's this accumulation of built up knowledge over time.
What is a phone? How does internet work? How does, you know, one time... Okay, so I was in this graphic design class, and once in the middle of class, I just blurted out, how the fuck do refrigerators work? And, like, my professor got really mad at me, because it was just out of nowhere, and he, like, pulled me aside. You don't say things like that. I was like, but how do refrigerators work?
And that had nothing to do with what you were learning at the time?
No, absolutely nothing.
I mean, yeah, I actually don't know how refrigerators work. I guess you need Freon for some reason. And then you have to make the surrounding area outside of the box really hot, and the area inside of the box gets cold.
Something with, like, compressing air to... Yeah, I don't know.
But, I mean, it's pretty smart stuff. But I don't know anything about it.
Yeah. And, like, that show Naked and Afraid, I never watched it, but my mom does. where, you know, you have people go out into the woods with no clothes and like an axe or something, and they have to like just survive.
Yeah.
Guess what? You don't know anything. Could you survive in the Middle Ages? Maybe with that level of technology you could, but you don't know how to cure the plague, do you?
Yeah. It's like we judge animals by a completely different standard
Right.
than we judge ourselves. And
Like Einstein said about monkey and a fish, judging them by their ability to climb a tree.
Yeah. In that way, and in a different way too, because it's as if as a human child, you are just like put into a place like a room or a forest or whatever, and you don't really have any contact with other humans, and you just grow up on your own without any like knowledge of how to do so. And then we come in and see how smart you are. That condition that you're in of not being in communication with other humans to give you information about how the world works, you're probably going to be as smart as a dog is, because dogs don't have this passed down information that humans have. So it's like we're saying, oh, dogs are stupid. But yeah, a human would be equally as stupid if we didn't have the benefit of other humans teaching us all these things that we've learned for the past thousands of years.
But at the same time, like dogs and pigs and dolphins and rats and elephants are like on a different level than like iguanas and squirrels.
Squirrels are pretty smart. Squirrels and rats, probably comparable.
Well, okay, maybe.
Comparable smartness. But to some degree, there's definitely a hierarchy and capacity for intelligence to the animal kingdom.
But are we like 10 times smarter than dogs? Probably not. We just have better ways of communicating things.
Yeah.
But at the same time, we can't understand what dogs are trying to communicate to us. You know, your dog walks up to you and they're like,
Yeah.
You know, what does that mean? Does that mean food? Does that mean water? Does it mean outside? I don't know.
But I mean, another dog would know.
Right. Or like cats don't meow to each other.
Is that true?
That's what I've heard. Like, unless they're hurt. But like
they
don't walk up to each other and just that's a thing that they do for humans' benefit.
I mean, maybe it's because they don't really need anything from other cats.
Well, maybe.
They only need something. They just want food or whatever.
True.
You're not going to get food from another cat. Yeah. Okay, so that was a tangent on animal intelligence, but I thought it was interesting. Reboot culture.
Oh, God. Start me off. I don't know. How do I go into this?
So what do you mean by reboot culture? Are you thinking the fact that through the past like 10 years, we've had lots of unoriginality in like the movie industry?
Yeah.
Where you're like recreating Ghostbusters again. You're recreating like Godzilla for the 400th
5
time.
Star Wars movies and 11 Star Wars TV series on the way.
Yeah.
37 Marvel movies or however many.
Bringing back Jumanji. Well, I mean, Marvel movies, that's not reboot, though.
Bringing back the Powerpuff Girls twice.
Yeah, that's reboot.
The X-Files. You know, and to a degree, if you're going to do something like Planet of the Apes or Battlestar Galactica, where you're going to reboot something that wasn't great the first time, like, I love the original 5 Planet of the Apes movies.
Original 5? There were that many?
Yeah.
Wow. I think I've seen one of them.
Well, the 5th one is absolutely terrible, even by standards of, 1973. But like, if you're going to reboot something, make it something worth rebooting. Like, make it something that wasn't great the first time. Like Mirror's Edge.
Wait, you're saying
Mirror's Edge? Sorry.
No, but Churches has an amazing song from Mirror's Edge, don't they?
Oh yeah, yeah.
Yeah, great song.
That's how I got into them, actually. I was always like, oh, they were some pop band. I don't want to listen to them.
Mirror's Edge has a remake? Or will have?
It does, yeah.
How old is it?
Well, that was the
that was the remake.
Reboot that Churches made the song for.
Okay.
The original was like 2007 or 2008.
Final Fantasy VII had a remake. And they retconned a bunch of stuff.
Let's save that. Let's save that for a little bit down the line. But Mirror's Edge, yeah, it was like this linear, sort of clunky. It controls clunky. And, they only made one game. It was a really good concept. And then they make another game. And it's like, okay, good. You made the combat. Well, it's not really combat. It's kind of just running away from people. Like the movement. Okay, the movement.
Yeah.
Is so much better. But like the story is crap. And like the environment.
They changed the story?
Yeah.
It's more like less than a reboot. There's a difference between a remake and a reboot, I guess. Because a remake would just use the same exact stuff, but updating it all.
Right.
Like the Jumanji is not a remake; it's a reboot because it's a completely different story.
Right. And Final Fantasy VII is both a sequel and a reboot, even though they call it remake. It relies on you knowing what happens in the original.
Yeah, so you should have played the first one.
Yeah. Because it goes off in different directions, and like at one point a character dies that never died. Like everyone was locked up in a prison cell in the original, and like in the remake they're off doing other things, and then this character dies.
Yeah, they've got these weird characters that are like,
and they're like poking you like, hey, that wasn't supposed to happen. Do you see what's going on? Huh?
Yeah.
Huh? Do you see where we're going with this?
Yeah, they've got characters that are like, what is it, that they're angry about things not happening the way they're supposed to happen? Like the fates or whatever of Final Fantasy VII universe?
Yeah, so in the original, Cloud would get memories of, like I touched on earlier, like his friend's life, and like every time he would say something that wasn't actually true, he would get like a static in his head, which, like I was saying, good depiction of memory loss right there. But then like in the remake, it's like flashes of what happened the first time rather than flashes of the past.
Oh, okay.
So like he meets this character who dies halfway through the original, and he, has a vision of her getting killed.
Yeah.
Which isn't even going to happen until the second or third part in the remake.
So it's almost like an alternate universe.
Yes.
Final Fantasy VII.
I have a theory that Sephiroth like came back from the end of the sequel movie to like, and it gets into fate. And I don't want to sound like a massive nerd, but like Final Fantasy VII is kind of overrated to a point, but like at the same time it does some really good stuff that I love with memory and fate.
I don't think you have to worry about being a massive nerd. That's fine.
But yeah, I have this theory that like Sephiroth is like screwing with fate, and I mean that's probably where they're gonna go with it.
So you played the remake?
Yeah.
Planning on buying the future installments? Which
yeah,
I thought that was kind of lame. Like they passed it off like it was a remake of the game, and then it's like,
well, there's
like we got multiple parts. Like we're gonna sell one game as 4 games.
Okay, but the original. Okay, no, it's totally fine because the original is an entire planet, and you can do that in tiny little triangles running around, being goofy 1 second and then really dramatic the next second. But you can't do that photorealistically. You can't make an entire photorealistic planet. That's just for $60. That is too much to ask. It's still a 100-hour game.
Oh, okay, it's still the quality of a $60 game.
Oh yeah.
Okay.
And I mean, it's not even the first time Final Fantasy's done that. Like they have an entire series for 10, they have an entire series for 4, they have an entire series for 12, 13, 15 has a bunch of side stories. It's stupid. Like they tried to cash in on stuff immediately, but whatever. What was that a tangent of?
Well, we were just talking about reboots, and that was an example of one. So like rebooting Mirror's Edge.
Okay. Going back to Final Fantasy. So like, I like the reboot sequel, but it kind of like, because the original was like the series creator's way of dealing with losing his mom, and it's also about like poverty and how corporations are fucking up the world. This is like some good stuff for 1997. But then like the remake is just, oh hey, look, it's our poster boy of the series, Cloud, and his arch enemy Sephiroth. Look at them, they're fighting again. Hey, you like Cloud and Sephiroth? Hey, look at that, it's Cloud and Sephiroth. Oh yeah, and by the way, there's a corporation that's fucking up the world. And by the way, if you're poor, it's your own fault. You're not trying hard enough to subvert fate.
That's a message in the story.
Yeah.
It's okay.
I don't think it's intentional. I think they're trying to make a product, but like unintentionally, they're like contradicting the point of the original.
Right. Yeah. So I've seen some like reviews of the game. I haven't played it, and from what you're talking about right now, it sounds as if the first game was trying to make a point about corporations fucking up the world, and this new game is an example of corporations fucking up the world. Like, right. It is a corporation fucking.
And like a lot of the original people are working on it, but not the series creator, because he went off and did his own thing 10 years ago.
Yeah.
So, like, the original is a passion project of this one guy, and he's not around. And now they're just like, hey, we can sell this game with Cloud and Sephiroth, and people want a remake. Let's just make a 4-part remake. Because, I mean, again, it's totally valid that they're doing it, but...
Yeah, back to the indie game thing, though. That's one of the reasons why indie games as a whole are so great.
Right.
Is because they're made before the company loses its soul and, like, sells out, basically, and just makes things for profit. They're made at the early stages when the company has yet to prove itself and can go wild with passion and with whatever they want to do. And then you wait 10 more years, 20 more years, and, you know, companies like Blizzard Entertainment are no longer the same company that's making, like, Warcraft 3, because it's an amazing game, and now they're just making stuff that's kind of like soulless. And
or Bungie making Halo.
Right.
You know, here's this thing that's going to sell a bunch of Mac computers back when Macs aren't really anything, and then, you know, they sell the rights to Microsoft, and then they're making 3 good games, and then the third game, hey, let's make some extra stuff and sell it, and then they go off and do Destiny, and it's all microtransactions. And
yeah, the microtransactions are the worst.
Bringing it back to Star Wars, like, you know, here's this guy, he's made 2 films, and now he wants to do a thing inspired by Flash Gordon and, you know, what's his name, Akira Kurosawa films that he loved as a kid. And, like, let's also structure it based on mythology, blah, blah, blah. And he makes this film called The Star Wars, and then it becomes this big thing, and it's like, it takes the place in society of mythology, and, like, everyone feels entitled to it. And you have, like, hundreds of authors adding books to this thing, and people feel they own that too.
Right.
Guy, you know, thinks it's no longer any fun to make these films because everybody hates everything he does because it can't live up to their image of it in his head.
Yeah.
Sells the right to a corporation. The corporation makes 5 films in 5 years, erases all the books, and people are like, oh, but I like those books. Okay, go back and read the fucking Thrawn trilogy. Okay? Go back and read the fucking
Yeah, just because Disney declares it as non-canon doesn't mean it has to be non-canon.
Right. I still like Knights of the Old Republic. I still like the 2003 Clone Wars. Just because they're non-canon doesn't mean a goddamn thing. People don't care when there's like 87 Batman continuities. Yeah. But suddenly they care if there's 2 Star Wars continuities.
Yeah. I think this is just a bigger problem that I feel, and I've talked about this before. It's just an interesting thing that I like is, well, I don't like it, I hate it. I feel like ideas and like stories and basically just products in general, or things that people make, creative projects, are better when they're in the hands of one person.
Right.
Instead of being in the hands of the culture or being in the hands of the corporation. Yeah, when you've got George Lucas making a thing, it's awesome. When it becomes popular, it's like the most hipster point to make. As soon as it like breaches past that like threshold of critical popularity, and then it's not going to be good anymore.
Or, you know, you have J.J. Abrams saying, hey, look, here's girl Luke and Stormtrooper Anakin and Anakin's grandson, who's just Anakin even more angry, and Han Solo, except he's an X-Wing pilot, and, you know, just remaking these characters, and, oh, here's girl Luke on a planet she wants to leave. You know, she finds the Millennium Falcon and meets Han and Chewie. They, you know, go to a Death Star. She gets captured, blah, blah, blah. They blow up the Death Star. There's a lightsaber battle. There's a space battle. It's just, they go to a cantina where they meet weird, crazy bounty hunters. You know, it's just, The Force Awakens is like this safe thing. It's just a remake of A New Hope. And then you get to
uninspired.
And then, like, Gareth Edwards is like, over John Knoll, you know, the head supervisor of the prequel special effects, is like, hey, let's make a movie about finding the Death Star plans. And, you know, he writes a draft, and then Gareth Edwards comes in and directs Rogue One, and it's, you know, they're like, we want to do these things, but we want to play it safe. We don't want to kill everybody off at the end. And then Lucasfilm is like, no, it's okay. You can kill off everyone at the end. So they reshoot it. They had the Darth Vader hallway scene, which is now iconic. One of the best scenes in the entire series. But it's like, because they were intentionally being safe, they had to go back and redo it the way they wanted to do it.
Yeah.
And Rogue One actually turned out decent. Last Jedi, Rian Johnson goes and does his own thing. Mixed opinions on that. You know, some people are saying Luke isn't powerful enough. Some people say Luke is too powerful.
I mean, Luke went through the same thing Yoda did, basically. Put himself in exile and kind of like tried to stay out of it.
I ranted on Twitter about this one time for like 10 tweets, but like Luke standing there, you know, being like this all-powerful figure, pacifist, stopping the First Order, like being a pacifist is like the ultimate everything the Jedi are supposed to be.
Right.
And people don't like that. They want to see him beat up Kylo Ren.
Yeah. It's like he's like playing the same kind of role or attitude as Aang in Avatar: The Last Airbender.
Well, right.
It's like he's got all the power in the world, but he doesn't want to use it because it's corrupting influence. He wants to be a pacifist.
And, you know, why did he have to die? Well, if he could have done that all along and he gets to go back to his island, then there's no point in him not having stopped the First Order before. If he could have done that all along. Then J.J. Abrams gets it back in his hands and he's like, oh yeah, no, well, Luke's a ghost and he's, you know, living on the same island. You know, there's no difference about Luke being a ghost or not. He's the exact same character in Episode 9. He didn't need to be a ghost. You know, he's not like helping Rey in the way that Obi-Wan was helping him. You know, lose the Force, let go, or you must go to the Dagobah system. When he's like dying in the snow. You know, he's just Luke, except this time he's glowing and transparent.
Well, I guess, I don't know, can a Force ghost use the Force like the same kind of way?
Yeah.
Maybe it makes it seem more like he's now dead, even though he's still there. He's now dead, so he's not going to come to a rescue in this movie, even though he could still. I don't know. It's more like an expectation in the audience of like, Luke's mostly out of it. He's mostly on the sidelines, so don't expect him to do the same thing he did in the last movie.
And like that's, oh man, I think it was The Legend of Korra, where Katara says to Korra, you know, she's had her adventures. Yeah. You know, she's taken the back seat on this one. Because it can't be about 87-year-old Han and 70-year-old Luke and Leia and
forever. Yeah. One thing you said before about the reboots, that I mean I agree with, but it's not going to happen, is that if they're going to do a remake or a reboot, they should do on something that wasn't successful. If it's like we live in a capitalist culture, like the reason they do reboots of successful things is because it was successful the first time. It's probably going to be successful again the second time. If something makes a lot of money once, it's going to make a lot of money twice. So they're taking a big risk and perhaps likely to lose a bunch of money if they decide to do a remake of the Super Mario movie, Super Mario Bros. Movie from like 1993. I mean, honestly, I think it'd be amazing, but they're not going to do it because it was such a horrible and amazing. I mean,
they are making a Mario movie, but are they going to follow that plot? Probably not.
A live action Mario movie?
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I think Illumination's doing it.
Oh, okay.
Which, I mean, if you're going to choose an animation studio, may as well do the one that's like
makes
glowy and.
You seen their water? Their water looks.
Okay, I mean, but like they're already corporate sellouts.
That's true.
So
that's
like, and they have that glowy look that would be good for Mario. So like, yeah, they're perfect. And like Nintendo, okay, not to stay on the same subject for too long, but Nintendo like selling people's childhoods back to them at full price.
Oh god, like, yeah, like Pokemon remakes over and over every single year, and they're getting progressively worse and worse over time.
Or like this Donkey Kong game that was on Wii U that nobody played. Hey, let's sell it again for $60 with no changes whatsoever.
Yeah.
Or hey, here's these 3 Mario games.
Yeah, the Mario All-Stars.
$60.
They're only available this year. Better get them before they go away.
Only available until March.
Back into our Nintendo vaults.
It's already gone. Guess what? I have a copy on it. I don't even have a Switch. Worked on me, and I didn't even play those games as a kid. Yeah, I bought the game, and I don't even have a Switch. Yep.
Wait, what? What?
In case I get a Switch in the future, I want to have those games.
Wow.
So yeah, okay, it worked on me.
It really worked on
They're selling me back my childhood that I didn't even have.
You bought something you can't even use.
Yes. Yep. Guess what? I bought a $40 steelbook of The Rise of Skywalker, even though I hate it. I am a consumerist whore.
I'm glad I didn't follow that trajectory because I own the first, I hope it's not 7, but at least 6 seasons of Game of Thrones. And because I was like collecting them all, not ever going to buy season 8.
I'll get it when it's like $10.
You'll still get it? Why? Don't support that.
I'm going to buy it used.
It's better, but still.
Look, someday I might just want to read.
If you buy it used, buy it direct from another person. Don't buy it from
Right.
like a used store, because then they'll think, oh, people like Game of Thrones season 8. We can't have that.
Right.
Nobody likes it.
And I mean, bad Game of Thrones is still better than most of what's on TV. But just
no, I would rather watch Keeping Up with the Kardashians than Game of Thrones season 8. Sorry. Game of Thrones season 8 was at least popcorn level of entertainment. Have you watched Keeping Up with the Kardashians?
No, and I don't plan to.
You could eat some popcorn to that.
No. it would just upset me to the point where I can't eat.
That's me with Game of Thrones season 8. Get so upset that I can't speak for 2 weeks.
Okay, in the moment, Star Wars 7 and 9 and Game of Thrones 8 were entertaining in the moment if you don't think about it from a narrative perspective. If you're just watching it.
How could you not think about it from a narrative perspective?
I know, and like I got out of The Force Awakens and I was like, wow, that was a really good movie. How they did this, that A New Hope did, and this, that A New Hope did.
If you only pay attention to the cinematography or to the music or to the acting or to the wardrobe or to the environment, then it's great.
Daenerys blowing up King's Landing with a dragon. That's fucking epic. But you know what? Leading up to it, oh, here she is being a little weird here. Here she is being a little weird here. And then she just breaks. No. Yeah.
Forced weirdness too. Like
they were always building up to it. I get that. And that's probably where the books are going to go too.
Oh, but in a more understandable way. Yeah. Telling the story of Daenerys' descent into madness over the course of the next 2 books rather than 5 minutes.
Yeah.
Actually, less than 5 minutes. It was about some bells rung and then madness.
Yeah.
That's not where
Jamie is the worst part. Like,
oh yeah, his inconsistent character arc.
I wrote this theory on where I thought it was going to go, and I was going to be like, wait, so what's his name, Greyjoy, was standing next to Cersei when Tyrion's talking about Cersei being pregnant, and he should put 2 and 2 together and say like, wait, the last time you saw Tyrion was before you ever met me, so like how would you be pregnant with my child? Wait a second, that's not actually my kid. Wait a minute, you're screwing Jamie. And then Jamie's like, hey, you're screwing around with this other guy, and like shouldn't even gotten back with her to begin with. And like the people of King's Landing should have been like, hey, you're using us as a meat shield, what the fuck? And they should have turned against her too. Like, you could have had this thing where her manipulation of everybody turned them all against her.
Yeah.
But no, she gets to go to the basement and then gets crushed by rocks with her brother that she loves. Really?
God. It actually seemed like things are going pretty well for King's Landing. Like when it seemed like Cersei was a fascist dictator, but it seemed like her citizens were pretty happy with it. Like she was doing a good job of being a queen. And without Daenerys, I think
Melisandre and Qyburn got better than they deserved.
Why did Melisandre deserve?
She just walked out into the tundra and just collapsed.
Yeah, but why do you think she deserved worse than that?
Because she burned a child alive.
Oh right, Shireen.
God.
Yeah, that's true. She did do that.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, she helped a little bit in a battle by lighting a bunch of swords on fire.
Yeah.
Even though it didn't matter.
There go the Dothraki, the entire Dothraki Legion. Oh no, all their swords go out one by one. Oh my god, they all got wiped out in a matter of seconds. Oh wait, no, a couple seconds later, or a couple episodes later, oh, there's more of them.
Yeah, they mysteriously repopulated.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Oh.
Yeah, there's so many problems. I made a whole video about all the problems. Well, a lot of the problems with season 8. Yeah.
Yeah.
That episode, I think for me anyway, was the turning point. It was episode 3 in season 8. A lot of people really hate the bells, and it is a horrible episode. Terrible. But season 8, episode 3, with the Night King and the White Walkers, the battle at Winterfell, that one was where it solidified how horrible it was. Because like season 7 was pretty darn bad, so I wasn't going into season 8 with high expectations. So I was like watching the first
season 7 was okay because it was building up to something. Like I didn't notice all the tiny things, but like
I was
so many things they didn't follow up on, like Ilaria Sand or whatever her name is.
Yeah.
That, like and her one daughter that gets poisoned and they get locked in the dungeon. Oh, that's going to come back to bite Cersei in the nope.
Yeah, they just died. Yeah, season 7 I was like horrified while watching because I was like, this is so bad. And I know a lot of people don't agree with me. They didn't realize Game of Thrones is bad until late season 8.
Mm-hmm.
I was thinking it was bad probably in season 6. Well, probably the only redeeming.
Well, but you read the books.
Yeah, I read the books, and I was a
remind me
fanatic
to come
about
back
the
to
show.
this.
Okay, I was a fanatic about the show. I'd watched, like, every year I would rewatch them all. So by the time season 8 came out, I had seen season 1 like 10 times now. So I was like,
I got into it between 5 and 6.
yeah. So like, I was obsessed, and I like knew all the trivia. Like, very. I won some Game of Thrones trivia at like pubs and stuff. I was into it. So season 7, hated watching it because I thought it was just like the worst it could go. So season 8, I was like, it can't get any worse, can it? So I'll just try to enjoy it for what it is. So episode 1 and episode 2 happen. I'm like, it's fine. And then episode 3 happens, and I'm like, oh, I was so wrong. It got so much worse because this arch nemesis of the entire world that they've been building up to since the very first establishing shot of the first episode, the White Walkers, like this existential threat to all of humanity, are dealt with by like, I don't know, a couple thousand people in one castle in the whole country, and they're killed by random out of nowhere Arya, who they try to make it seem like there was a prophecy about her, but there wasn't. They just kind of had to reword it.
Okay, yes to all of that except Arya, because Arya's entire journey was about like
not killing the Night King. It had nothing to do with the White Walkers.
It was about saying no to the god of death. Well, what is the Night King if not the god of death? Like he's the king of the undead. He is the god of death. So like I'm okay with it. Like I'm not saying literally, but just in a metaphorical sense. Like I'm sort of okay with Arya doing it.
It's just that I guess you could look at it that way through the metaphorical god of death thing. But aside from that, her story never once intersected with the White Walker story at all.
And it's just, I think part of it is just that they were building up to so many things, and then people saw where they were going, and so they had to redirect.
Yeah.
At the last second.
And with that episode 3, not just Arya killing the Night King, but the fact that the Night King was even killed, like, and especially so easily, and especially at so little cost.
And so early in the season.
It should have been like the last thing that happened, probably. Right.
And Halo does that pretty well, where, you know, in mission like 8 of Halo 3, you know, you kill the Covenant. Well, you don't. One of the characters kills the leader of the Covenant, and it's like a good fulfillment of his character arc, that he was once with the Covenant, and then he turns against them over the course of Halo 2, and then Halo 3, he's the one to end the Covenant.
Yeah.
And then you deal with the undead zombie king.
Right.
Like 2 missions later. So it's like, get the political stuff out of the way, then deal with the
world-ending stuff.
Yeah.
Right. And I know you could say, or anybody could say, that it'd be too expected or whatever, but I really think Jon Snow should have been the one to kill the Night King, because that was what his whole arc was about for the past 6-7 seasons. He was the guy who was at the wall dealing with the White Walkers.
Mm-hmm.
So, like, why have some random person? I mean, I know Arya's not random. He's her sister. She's his sister. But, like, it should have been the guy whose story was focused on that thing.
Or he should have had,
and he had like
something to do with it rather than taking cover behind some brick wall.
Right. And this is like a showdown in season 5 at Hardhome when like the whole wildling village gets attacked.
So good.
And that was an amazing episode, establishing this like rivalry between the Night King and Jon Snow. As he like staring at him, and he's like the only defiant person. And it's like, oh, okay, so they're gonna meet again. And it's like, didn't really matter. Like, Night King gets dealt with by some other.
I like Arya, so I'm okay with it.
I liked Arya.
She's one of my favorite characters, but like, I mean, I get it.
I liked Arya until season 6. Season 6 Arya's storyline was horrendous. Her somehow involving 1,000 stab wounds and running across the city, falling on melon carts against a literal trained assassin who she should not have been able to beat. Just Arya being invincible. No, she should have died in season 6. Or something else should have happened.
And like, this is the same thing that we were talking about, like J.J. Abrams taking over from George Lucas.
Yeah.
Where like George R.R. Martin has these 5 books of setup, and then these 2 guys who have never directed anything before in their lives come along and just go their own direction with it.
Yeah.
Change course, 7/8 of the way through. Theon, you were a good man. At the moment, that was gut-wrenching, and like, oh man, that is powerful. Like what's his name, Bran knows that Theon's going to die, and this guy's like his brother, and this fucking gut-wrenching. But then like, you look at it a month later and you're like, what does Theon have to do with the Night King? Like, if he has anything to do with it, he should be like defending Sansa or something.
Well, I mean, the Bran thing turns back around. I think I get the Theon and Bran combo, because Bran was the Lord of Winterfell in season 2, and
True,
Theon invaded
True.
and killed the place of Bran.
Right.
So he's repenting for that by dying for Bran.
True.
So I think that is a good moment of.
Okay, that's a good point.
However,
now we're just turning into the Game of Thrones
that's
episode.
fine. However, well, we're the movies and media episode, I guess.
Okay.
Theon being the only important death of that episode where the army of the dead is attacking.
Well, Melisandre.
Okay, sure, Melisandre. And yeah.
And
but
didn't a couple of the like B tier
Night's Watch guys,
guys?
Dolores Ed died too. Yes, but I think especially given episode 2, where that felt like a last hurrah before we all go to our deaths. Like it was just a celebration episode of like them knowing that they were about to face probably the last battle of their lives. I think 99, okay, no, not 99, like 90% of the characters involved should have died. Like they should have killed off almost all of them in that battle.
Maybe not that many, but yeah, a good amount.
I mean, they probably shouldn't have had that battle happen so early in the season, and then when that battle happened, most should have died.
Okay, maybe kill off. Okay, as much as it pains me to say this, maybe kill off Brienne so that
yes, definitely kill off
so
Brienne.
that Jaime actually has a reason to go back
that would
to
make
Cersei.
Sense. Kill off Brienne 100%. Kill off Sansa because she sucks. Kill off Sam Tarly. Like he can die.
I don't know.
Oh, and also one thing I was hoping for a split second would happen before my heart was wrenched out of my body and eaten was that right when Arya jumps out of nowhere to give her stab to the Night King.
Don't say
I was so hoping he was just going to snap her neck.
No.
Like she should have
No.
Like she should have died there.
No.
Oh, Bran should have died as well.
Bran should have died.
I think this is what should have happened. Well, the Night King is getting into little Heartwood, the forest where Bran is, and approaching him and like about to kill Bran. A succession of people try to kill the Night King and all die, and then Jon comes up last and he succeeds. That would have been better. Like all of Bran's siblings all of Jon's siblings should have died trying to kill the Night King, and then Jon does it. So he just gave everything he had for this. And then so Jon loses everyone he knows. Sam, his best friend, all his siblings. Basically everyone dies, but
except
he succeeds.
Sandor Clegane because he has to go up against his brother.
No, Clegane Bowl was hyped.
That was the one good thing about that season.
No. Clegane Bowl was hyped, and then the way it happened was just who cared at that point? Because it was in the middle of Daenerys doing a uncharacteristic plot twist.
I guess.
But yeah, I think Jon should have lost everyone he loved in order to save the world.
Bran should have controlled the fucking
dragon.
Yeah,
I know.
And like Night King's
they were
right
hyping
there.
Up to that.
Theon goes up against the Night King. Bran wargs into the dragon and like sets fire to the Night King and like sacrifices himself in the process. Maybe if you're going to subvert the whole Jon Snow takes out the Night King and it's one of the other Stark kids, then maybe that would be the way to do it.
Yeah. Or it could have been like Jon
and
gets
then,
help
like,
from Arya, like both dual combat, like Arya and Jon both fighting the Night King. So like Arya's skilled assassin combat helps, but like single-handedly doing it, taking the kill from Jon, who of all characters in the show deserved it the most, just felt like pandering in a bad way, like subversive pandering. Like we know you love Arya, let's do something random.
Kill off Bran so that he doesn't become the king.
Yeah, because that was stupid. Yeah, a lot of things wrong with season 8.
But I wanted to go back to one of the pitfalls about modern mythology, things like Game of Thrones or Marvel or Star Wars that everybody loves.
Yeah, is
comparing it to the original.
Like
you read the Game of Thrones books. The Song of Ice and Fire books. So you have like this expectation for wonderful, wonderful writing, aside from the people that watched the first 5 seasons or 4, depending on who you ask, that were good. And I don't know, it's just, especially with The Matrix, like I love the Matrix sequels, sue me. But like there's a very hard line between the action scenes and the plot exposition. Like any decent movie would find a way to intertwine them. But like The Matrix explains things for so long. Like I don't know how many of them you've seen.
I know I've seen the first one. I rewatched it again quite recently. I know I've seen the sequel, but that was in my childhood, so I don't really remember it. Don't think I've seen the third.
Do you remember the part where Neo's in a room surrounded by TVs and he's talking to this guy for like 20 minutes?
Surrounded by TVs?
Yeah.
I don't know. No.
Okay. Well,
is that from the second one?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, I don't.
Basically, there are no plot holes in the entire Matrix trilogy because they explain everything in such boring detail that there's no, like, they take this one opportunity in the middle of the trilogy to like explain every tiny thing that someone could find some sort of plot hole, and it's airtight, but it makes for a really boring movie. But I still love the Matrix sequels, and the original was like so good. And you know, people can say, oh, it's like Ghost in the Shell, which, okay, another thing we should go back to. But like, not being as good as the original does not necessarily make something bad.
Yeah.
Like, people say The Legend of Korra is bad just because it's
I love
not
The
as
Legend
good
of
as...
Korra.
Yeah, it's not as good as The Last Airbender, but it's still really fucking good.
Except for a few episodes in season 4. But yeah. Those are just bad on their own badness.
I don't know. I don't remember anything specifically. Like what?
So I think it was mostly the fault of Nickelodeon, who were fucking around with
Well, yeah.
the team who made Legend of Korra by putting it on the air, taking it off the air, then putting it on Nick.com and reducing their budget. So there are a few episodes of season 4, especially the first episode, where the animation is noticeably worse. Like they don't do background movement; they do stills, which is not a thing that The Last Avatar or Last Airbender or Korra do.
Okay, but The Last Airbender, the first couple episodes... Well, I mean, it's the first couple episodes of a 7-season series, but like the first couple episodes of Airbender are kind of rough too. Hate to say it.
They're more like goofy and
No, like the animation. There's like...
Yeah, I mean that's the show that definitely gets better and better as it goes on.
In like the 4th episode, they spell out everything that is going to happen. This is when there's going to be an eclipse and blah blah blah, and the meteor, blah blah blah. We need to...
They don't know about the eclipse until season 2. They learn about it in the library that there's an eclipse coming.
You're right.
I mean, they explain in the first season. They explain some of the stuff that has to happen throughout the rest of that season. Like he has, on this certain day, he has to go to the fire temple to meet Roku.
Right.
And
that's what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
When is that later? When he talks to Roku, is that later on in the series?
That's season 1, but that's like episode 12 or 15 or something.
Okay. Well, still, they like spell out, they give this framework of where the story has to go, and then they find it along the way.
Yeah.
There's this bit in Dragon Age 2 where there's this character that's an author, and one of the other characters, you know, says, do you always have an ending in mind? And he says, well, I have some idea, but, you know, the story goes where it wants to go. The characters drive it, not me.
Right.
So, like, Game of Thrones, like, had somewhere to go.
Yeah.
But then people figured it out over the course of 7 years, and they had to like change course, I'm sure.
I think that's the problem with that George R. R. Martin has been facing these past like 10 years, as he's been not releasing a new book. Is his writing is, especially in the later books, you can tell it's very character based. He's got an idea of who these characters are, and then they go on adventures, and like some of the characters' plot lines in the 4th and 5th book are literally pointless because they go off to do a mission and then they fail, or they find that the person they were trying to save is already dead or something like that. So like there are just like Brienne's story or like Quentin's story in the 4th book. They're just like,
fuck is Quentin?
He's a character that doesn't show up. In
apparently
the TV show. But his story, I love his story because it's like with The Last Jedi. They go on that trip. I forgot their names.
Finn and Rose.
They go on the trip, and the trip ends up not mattering because they didn't succeed in what they were trying to do.
But he still took out Captain Phasma, which I was hoping that she would be one of the many Star Wars characters that came back from the dead, but no, it's fucking Palpatine.
And they inspire some children on Casino Planet to be future Rebel members, sure. But they're
I like the Casino Planet.
I like too, and this is the reason I liked it is because it was pointless. I think it's like a realism that you don't often see in storytelling of stories going nowhere.
It's not pointless because like it's about war profiteers and like these people that design X-Wings and TIE fighters and are supplying both sides, and it's like this good commentary about capitalism.
No.
And it's what radicalizes Finn. At the beginning of the film, he only wanted to die for Rey. By the end, he wants to die for the entire Rebel Alliance.
Okay. Yeah, it does have like a good message and interesting stuff in there, but I feel like
it is Finn's motivation.
But Finn's motivation actually ends up not mattering, especially in The Rise of Skywalker.
Well, yeah.
I just mean for the plot at large, like you could probably just delete that. It wouldn't really matter. I think it's worth having in, but it's generally like a failed attempt at a mission. So in the 4th book, actually no, in this case the 5th book of Song of Ice and Fire, there's a character Quentin Martell. He's one of the Dornish. He's Yeah.
Oh yeah, I might have heard of him. Yeah.
But he doesn't appear in the TV show. He goes off on a mission to marry Daenerys because when Daenerys was a little kid, there was a contract made that a Dornish prince would marry a Targaryen. So he's hoping she'll honor this. So he goes all the way across the world and he joins mercenary companies and half of his friends die. And he's got this long adventure of finding Daenerys. Then he finally gets to Daenerys and he's like, I'd like to marry you. And here's this contract. Daenerys laughs in his face. She's like, why would I care about that? And then he's like, I know, I need to prove myself to Daenerys. And what I'll do is show that I'm a dragon rider because that's a very important thing for the Targaryen culture. If you can ride a dragon, like, that's like...
Jorah died in the Battle of...
Jorah also died, yes. That's true.
Yeah, sorry.
Jorah died, yes. So Quentin is like, I'm going to ride one of Daenerys' dragons. And remember in season 5, she locks up her dragons?
Yeah.
This is during that time period. So he goes into the dragon pen to release them.
Puppies, the poor puppies.
He goes in to release them. He succeeds in releasing them, but he gets burnt alive and dies. There's some theories that he's not actually dead and he just got roasted and he's still alive. But he failed, and at least as of this moment, it seems like he's dead, and his long storyline could have just been cut entirely and it wouldn't have mattered. But I like it. Because it's...
Wait, okay, so what's the Azor Ahai thing?
Azor Ahai is the foretold savior of the world, who the original Azor Ahai, he was like the warrior and the...
How did I remember that word? I've never read I read like the first couple chapters of the first one.
It was Azor Ahai that drove back the White Walkers 10,000 years ago with the help of the Children of the Forest, back when like the first men were settling Westeros and the White Walkers were just killing everyone. So then there's a prophecy that he will return to do the same thing again, except probably this time be more successful and finally getting rid of the White Walkers and turning back the last night, or the long night.
What's the thing with fire? Like, doesn't Azor Ahai have like a flaming sword or something?
Yeah, he's got a flaming sword.
Could that have something to do with the burnt up Martell guy?
I guess it could. Because George R. R. Martin likes to foreshadow, and he likes to write in ambiguous, like, metaphorical ways. So it could be that literally getting burnt alive, that's he is the flaming sword.
Yeah.
That could be something like that. And people think that the Hound is Azor Ahai.
Oh, yeah.
Melisandre obviously thinks that Stannis is Azor Ahai. People think that Jon Snow is Azor Ahai.
Makes the most sense, which makes it the most unlikely.
So, I mean, at this point, the books are unfinished, so...
Yeah.
We don't know. Going back to one thing we were talking about, and then I feel like we'll wrap up,
okay,
is when we're talking about intelligence and comparing human intelligence to animal intelligence, and the fact that we rely on the stepping on the shoulders of previous humans for this collective intelligence we have. I just wanted to say this because I was thinking about it a few days ago. It's the same thing with like human morality too. We look back on previous humans and we're very often tempted to judge them harshly because if they lived in today's society, they'd be racists, or they'd be slave owners, or they'd be bigots or sexists, or whatever the case, which is true, they would be. I mean, at least if you brought them in their present form, like, or in the form that they died in, if like the same exact personality, yes, they would be. But the thing is, those are the people, like the Thomas Jeffersons or the Voltaires or whatnot, the people who had their problems, those are the people who like progressed human morality at the time to bring us to where we are today. So like, even though Voltaire was like, I don't know, a sexist and whatever, he like advanced the Enlightenment and like human rationality so much that we owe him for it. We can't judge him based on modern standards.
Okay, but like Columbus was even a monster even back in his day.
Yeah, that's
and
not
like,
everyone was a good person.
You're also looking at this
like,
from like a Christian perspective.
What do you mean?
Like, so many cultures around the world have had third and more genders, or like been okay with gay partnerships and stuff like that. You know, it's only this Eurocentric, Christian-centric view, or Abrahamic-centric maybe. Well, I mean, I don't know what the Jewish perspective on gay marriage is, but you know, Christianity and Islam not liking it.
Yeah, I mean,
so that I can sleep at night, I do like to think that morality is objective.
Objective how?
I mean, killing someone is wrong. You know, being a fucking transphobe is wrong. Rape is wrong.
You don't think there's been moral progress over history, though?
I mean, it's been, until recently, until the last 200 years or so, it's, you know, cultures have been pretty isolated from each other, and they've all developed their own sense of morality. so yeah, you have the Egyptians enslaving people and Jews enslaving people and English people enslaving people, and God knows how many other cultures have had slavery. But like, you can't convince me that they thought it was good. Like, they justified it, and even today, some elementary schools are like, slavery actually helped the economy, blah blah blah.
Here's a way of thinking about it. Do you think there are things that we currently are doing today that we think are good, that in another couple hundred years society will view as objectively bad?
Well, one problem with interviewing people that you used to work with at a vegan cafe or do work with, like, one thing that pretty much everyone you're going to talk to on this, you don't only interview coworkers and former coworkers, but I'm gonna say it.
Say it.
Killing and eating animals, we don't need to. And like, okay, not to go down another rabbit hole, but like, people pretend that veganism is like this establishment thing. It's not. It is the exact opposite. The dairy industry is literally funding the government to put out this propaganda about, oh, you need to eat fucking milk from another species to grow your bones even when you're an adult.
Wait, people think that veganism is an establishment thing?
Yeah, some people do.
Oh, I don't know how much of that I've seen, but yeah, that's what I mean, though. It seems like there's clearly moral progress over time where humans in a certain time period think that what they're doing is good or at least not bad, and then future humans look back and say, that was quite clearly bad.
Okay, but deep down, people feel guilty about eating animals, otherwise they wouldn't lash out at vegans so much. It's their own guilt.
And I don't know, maybe it's...
Like,
it might not be their
hey,
own
I'm
guilt.
ordering a pizza, what do you want? Oh, can you get a cheese pizza? No! Oh my god, why do you have to make everything about you being vegetarian? Oh my god, why are you being... people get so defensive if you even mention that you're vegetarian.
I mean, there's another way of looking at it, though. It might not be guilt. It might not be some knowledge that what they're doing is deeply wrong and they're trying to ignore it. It could be, equally as much, that they simply don't like people making the implication that you're a bad person. Like, you might not feel like you're a bad person. You might not actually be guilty, but being told you're a bad person by other people makes you get on the defensive. You know what I mean? Yeah. Like when you call your parents a racist or something like that. They don't feel guilty about being racist. They don't think they are racist. They don't like being accused of things.
Well, if someone says, men, blah, 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 so many people are going to be like, not all men, blah, 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 blah. But, if it doesn't apply to me, I don't get offended about it. If you say men, constantly,
wouldn't
blah,
it
blah,
apply
blah.
to you, though, if you are...
I can't think of examples.
If you include yourself in the generalization of men, wouldn't then it apply to you?
If it doesn't apply to me, I'm not going to be offended by it.
Okay. But that's just what I mean. I mean, it could be not a guilt-associated thing, but more of a, like, you're trying to make me seem like a bad person. I'm not. So, like, I'm going to argue back against you kind of thing. So I think a lot of people, most people perhaps, legitimately don't think eating animals is wrong. Especially in a fundamental sense. I think there are a lot of people who think eating animals is wrong because of the way we currently do it. Like, they think factory farming is wrong, but they don't think on a fundamental level that eating another animal is wrong. They think there's a way you could do it proper, like, well. That's the arguments I get from a lot of people.
Maybe.
And I think as time continues onward, we will look back at that as we look back at slavery. So I think, yes, there were people hundreds of years ago thinking slavery was the good and proper thing.
I don't know, maybe it's just my bias not being able to wrap my mind around that kind of prejudice, but...
So that's the thing. Like, we can judge people by the standards of today, but we also have to take in mind that they lived in a completely different world where everyone around them was a slave owner or was a whatever it is, a wife beater or a whatnot, gay hater. So if they're the one person who's progressing morality even just a little bit, we have to acknowledge that and thank them for it, because without those type of people, we wouldn't be here. And I don't know, each culture has their own version of the person who progressed gay rights, the person who progressed female, like women's rights. But like, we have to look back at our own cultural lineage and thank those people for doing that thing. But that's not to say every person of the past was good. Like, there are still monsters.
Yeah.
Christopher Columbus, still committed some genocide.
Mm-hmm.
So.
And was thought of as a monster even back then.
Right.
Or like, not to equate the two. But J.K. Rowling, guess what? The way she came out after the books were done, Harry Potter, if people listening don't fucking know who J.K.
I
Rowling
think
is
everyone
somehow.
knows.
I would hope so, but you never know. You know, she comes out after the books are done. Oh, by the way, Dumbledore and Grindelwald were having some hot, steamy, aggressive sex. It's
Yeah.
like, we don't need to, okay, you don't need to go into that kind of detail to like,
Yeah.
you don't just, it's like she learned that she should be good about gay rights, blah blah
Yeah,
blah.
it's like a
and,
virtue
like,
signaling, wanting to include that like that.
I don't like the term virtue signaling because like that's what racists like to call just compassion, but like,
But isn't that what you were
Sort
describing though?
of.
Like fakely
I guess
bandwagoning onto
I
a
guess,
thing?
but like, guess what? She's a transphobic nut job.
It's not job.
Well, she is. I mean, she's like, oh, I don't want to share a bathroom with someone who has a penis. Oh no. Guess what? You say that about, oh, I don't want to, oh, someone with this type of thing between their legs might do this to me. Guess what? If you say that about someone who's black, it sounds really, really horrible and prejudiced. But you say it about trans people, suddenly society is like, oh yeah, that's understandable. God.
You know, I mean, we can hate
What was
J.K.
my point
Rowling.
with
I don't
this?
know what your point was, but my point, maybe it was yours too, maybe not, is that we can hate J.K. Rowling for her some of her views, but that doesn't wash out the good either. You gotta accept
Right.
both.
I mean, but then like
Harry Potter is still an amazing
but like
series.
some of that stuff is like, so, and like I've tried to like,
She's still
you know,
giving
Death of
billions
the
of dollars
Author.
to charity.
right, and like well, yeah, but at the end of the day, she's still a billionaire.
Yeah.
You know, she's still a giant
Probably,
human
yeah.
dragon sitting on a pile of gold. And like, I've tried looking past that, but then people bring up, oh, the Gringotts guys with their big noses and they're really good with money.
Oh, they're
Guess what? This
Jews.
is a stereotype. Yeah. And you know what? I can see that. Or Seamus Finnegan. Hey, here's this Irish kid. Guess what? He likes to blow things up. Like, no, like that's a thing.
I had never thought of that before.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, he does blow everything up.
But
That's amazing.
Death of the Author only works to a point, and this is going to bring it full circle. But like, the things we write, the art that we produce is like so ingrained in who we are. And
Right.
One of the first things they teach you in film school is write what you know.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm writing a story about my beliefs in destiny and how memory affects someone's identity and how it's all intertwined. And I don't know. I don't have the answers. I'm only 25. Even if someone was 500, they wouldn't have the answers to what the universe is.
Yeah. Have any parting words beyond that?
I mean, that's pretty much it. Our knowledge is built upon what other people know, but we all have our unique experiences, and
Yeah.
I'm really trying to cobble together all my
It doesn't
tangents.
doesn't need to be cobbled
But
together.
it is intertwined in a way, and everything in the universe is intertwined. Hey, let's bring that. No,
I mean, it's intertwined in like things you care about and you're interested in. And one thing you just mentioned that I'll say, I was recently reading a book called "But What If We're Wrong," because like you just said, in what we've been talking about a little bit, we build on knowledge over time, like as humans, but we always tend to assume that we, at least kind of in an implicit way, we might not vocally say it, or we might even deny it vocally, but we just kind of run with this bias that we know everything at any given moment, when that's clearly not true. So if you're interested in the idea of how wrong we might be and what the future might look like if we go off of the knowledge that we're usually wrong, the book "But What If We're Wrong" by Chuck Klosterman is pretty interesting. Pretty quick read too.
Is this the part where you ask me what my favorite book
It
is?
is. That is what I was segueing to.
God.
It doesn't have to be your favorite.
I was afraid of this one. I can't even think of anything.
Are you a book reader?
Not really. Not as much as I want to.
What's the last book you read?
I have been reading Howl's Moving Castle.
What is it?
Howl's Moving Castle.
Okay, what's that about roughly?
Okay, so Studio Ghibli did a film adaptation of it. It's really good. In the 1980s, Hayao Miyazaki makes this film called Castle in the Sky. And this author, Diana Wynne Jones, makes Howl's Moving Castle and then makes a sequel called Castle in the Air. They both know of each other's work because they both basically had the same title, I'm guessing, but they both end up aware of each other's work regardless. The book has this sense of whimsy to it and like alludes to this war going on in the background, and then like Hayao Miyazaki makes a film and like this war in the background actually has some impacts on the plot. Anyway, it's about this girl who works in a hat shop, and a witch comes in and curses her and makes her old, and she has to track down this wizard, Howl, who lives in a moving castle. And he has this apprentice, and there's this little fire demon. There's a scarecrow that I forgot how he works into the equation, who's a prince, and it's spoiler. It's one of those things where the book and the movie are like very, very different, but the author actually really liked the movie and Miyazaki's interpretation of it.
Okay.
Parting words.
Yeah. Go for it.
Justice League. Zack Snyder films this movie, okay, and Warner Brothers is like, okay, so this guy quit the project. Poor guy. And hey, let's get the guy who directed Avengers. He can fix this ensemble superhero movie, right? And Joss Whedon steps in. Bag of shit. Hate him. Used to love him, but he turned out to be a rapist too. So he comes in and he like tries to remake this movie that's already shot to his standards and like go with his colorful, funny tone with this grim, dark, gloomy thing. And it just turns into this really bad movie that everybody hates, even as a popcorn movie.
I never watched that one.
I didn't either. I'm just going off what other people have said.
Oh.
Oops. But like Joss Whedon makes his own, like Buffy still a classic, Firefly still a classic, because those are like his brain children.
Yeah.
And then Zack Snyder is like adapting Superman, who's existed for 75 years or whatever, you know, with mixed results. You know, Man of Steel,
Yeah.
Batman v Superman, and the Justice League. Guess what? He gets to make a 4-hour version of Justice League, and it turns out good because it's actually what he wanted to do, and the corporation just threw money at him and said, do what you want, we're not going to hold you back this time.
Yeah. Well, surprise, surprise. It's good when you just let the guy work on his dream.
Yeah.
It's bad when like multiple hands trying to all do their own thing.
Mm-hmm.
Dictatorship is good for art, not for governments, but for art.
What do you mean?
Like if an artist just let them have like
the artist as the dictator, not the corporation.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Just give artists complete control of the thing they're doing.
And like I feel I'm not into superhero stuff. I don't, you know, I liked Batman as a kid, I liked Spider-Man as a kid to a degree, but like Marvel movies bore me because they're just this corporate thing. And like you were saying about indie games back at the beginning, you know, we all have a story to tell. We all have a unique perspective on life. And I like to invest in things like, hey, here's one thing that I've been reading, Planet Ripple by Nick Anderson. Good luck finding Nick Anderson. But it's called Planet Ripple. It's his, you know, he's this autistic guy. He writes this story about an autistic protagonist in the ocean. He grew up by the ocean. He grew up in Maine.
Yeah.
And so it's this story about an autistic character by the ocean that only he, an autistic person by the ocean, could write.
Right. It's like all art in some way is autobiographical.
Right. Yeah.
Even if it's kind of hidden. Yeah.
Right. Well, that's about as good of a note as I could come up with to end on.
All right. Thanks for watching. Not watching. I'll say that again. Thanks for listening. If you enjoy this podcast, please feel free to support it in any way. Maybe you could tell your friends about it. Maybe you could just give it some views on YouTube or subscribe on Apple Podcasts or leave a rating or review. Or if you're feeling so inclined and you've got pockets full of cash, you could support it financially. Anyway, goodbye.
Also, Shiloh Cyan on YouTube. Or wait, no. Wait, it's cyanimation, like the color cyan.
I mean, I'll link to it.
Okay.
Cyanimation.
Or Shiloh Cyan on Instagram, where I'm going to be putting like, that's where I put like my sketchbook pages. I'm not going to have anything put out anytime soon. Like, I'm working on this opening battle, which I chose to open with a dragon mech fighting a vehicle. God, why did I choose to open with that? Anyway,
Yeah, I'll link to it.
support other passion projects like this podcast.